something's going to happen. I don't know what, probably because Jerry was up here. He was just up here to say, I'm on the agenda, I'm supposed to say something. I don't even say it. Don't call on me.
How's it?
That was it. So this Jerry and Paul. Jerry also volunteered Paul not to say a word, so I call him. But it's actually all three of us welcoming you. It's a joint meeting. And I can't believe there's some empty seats here, and we still have people in conference rooms. So I guess somebody else those seats. I guess it says a lot that the engineering community wants to be here, and we have an overflow crowd. And thank you for being here. I hope we can, I think we can make your day worthwhile. There's a lot of knowledgeable people to say some things here, and we've got a full agenda. So I'm just going to go ahead. Most of the dignitaries are going to be introduced as their own panels, and we'll do that at that time. So that's about it. Also, of course, we have a lot of Tallahassee people here that need to be recognized. And we got an assistant secretary, we got our chief engineer. You guys are going to say your own words, right? Tom Byron and Courtney Drummond. So let's get on with the program. Courtney's going to poll the audience. Me?
So in my mind, I'm about 6'2", but in reality, that's not the case. And I keep reminding people that if you ever seen that picture of the cat that looks in the mirror and sees a lion, that's me. So all right, let's get going. Polling the audience. Everybody got one of these little clickers here? Pull them out, take a look at them. Got a bunch of numbers on them. So some questions are going to be for DOT. Some questions are going to be for consultants. Some questions are going to be for District 4 DOT. Some are going to be for District 6 DOT. Some for Turnpike DOT staff. So I'll call those out as I go, and we'll go through the questions. Oh, I need to remind you, your answers are anonymous. Nobody will know statewide. All right, first question, real easy one. Are you a consultant or a DOT staff member? Press 1 if you're a consultant. Press 2 if you're a DOT staff. Polls or no? Katrina, I can't even see you. Tell me when you're ready. Back there. If that gentleman will just sit, I'm not 6'2", I can't see you. Good? All right. All right, so we're going to move to the next question and see if we're locked in that one. All right. Can you guys read this from the back, or do I have to read through everything? Just raise your hands if you can see it from the back. Okay, good. So, do you think the BDI program has been effective in growing small businesses? Consultant, you're going to answer 1, 2, 3, or 4. DOT staff, you're going to answer 5 or 6. So DOT is going to push a number 5 or 6 as to whichever you think is your, whichever answer you want to be. If you're a consultant, your options are 1 through 4. Polls are open, lock in your polls. Katrina, you see the results back there? You're good? Okay, hold a moment. One hold. Good? All right. Let's roll to the next one. So this one is for only District 4 DOT staff. Select the top 3 areas that consultants most need to improve their service to the department. If you look on your clicker record, it says here A, B, C, D. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on and so forth. So go ahead and lock in your answers. Polls are now open. I think I have an idea what this one's going to look like. Not yet? Okay. We're good. All right, let's move to the next one. This question is directed to District 6 FDOT staff. Select the top three areas that consultants most need to improve their service to the department. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are your options. Options are listed up there. Polls are open. Go ahead and lock in your answers. We're good? All right. Let's move to the next. This one is for the Turnpike Enterprise employees, DOT Turnpike staff. Same question. Select the top three areas that consultants most need to improve their service to the department. I think you guys are getting the gist of this now, right? Polls are open. Are we good, Ms. Katrina? All right. Let's move on. Okay. So, this one is for the consultants. Select the top three areas where you feel that District 4 can improve service to the consultant industry. So District 4, we're polling this question for consultants as it relates to District 4. Polls are open. Do you guys need me to read through these different selections? Raise your hands if you want me to. I'm sure it sounds great with my accent. Polls are open. Very good. All right. Go to the next one. Similar question to previous one, but this time it relates to District 6. Select the top three areas where you feel that District 6 can improve service to the consultant industry. Consultant answers. Okay, thought that was a hanging shaft. Go up and come back down. Okay, next question. Select the top three areas where you feel that Florida's Turnpike Enterprise can improve service to the consultant industry. Yeah, consultants, polls are open, lock their votes. Okay. that should take us to the end of our questions. I'll be back later with the answers, and we'll discuss it. Or I guess I'll be the one to share it with everybody and give everybody an opportunity to do some feedback. I think the introduction time will start next. Thank you.
The stairs are located on the side. The production panel is John Olson, Judy Gonzalez, Paul Castillo, Steve Brown, Daniel Iglesias, Pat Munch, Vern Danworth, and the moderator is Bob Gayward.
Good morning. This is the production panel, as you can see from your agenda. I think I'm introducing each one of the individuals who are up here, starting on my immediate left here. First, I have John Olson. He is consultant project manager engineer for District 4. Then followed by Judy Gonzalez, the district consultant project manager engineer for D6. Then we have Paul Satchfield, who is a turnpike management administrator for the Turnpike Enterprise, followed by the district design engineer for District 4, Steve Braun, district design engineer for D6, Danny Iglesias, the Florida Turnpike design engineer, Pat Mensch, and then we have the state CAD systems engineer, consultant CAD systems engineer, Vern Danforth, and finally, last but not least, from HNPD Consulting. Okay, we have a couple of topics here today that we're going to be engaging our panel with. The first question is going to be regarding the loss of institutional industry knowledge and transferring knowledge to younger engineers. Before this meeting, I was discussing a little bit with John Olson this topic, and it's no different. I mean, this topic probably goes back thousands of years. Everybody tries to transfer their knowledge to the next generation. It's sort of like what you try to do with your children. You try to transfer your knowledge to them and hope for the best if they listen to you. Well, this is no different when you're trying to trying to mentor younger engineers. You try to, teach them the best and hope for the best. So with that, the first question we have is will be given to Steve Braun, Judy Solomon, and Paul Satchfield. And the question is, as your senior staff members retire, what steps has your district taken to ensure that both technical and project management knowledge acquired over the years by the senior staff is properly transferred to the younger staff members? I mean, I know each one of you have a little perspective, so feel free to kind of deviate as you need. Let's start with Steve. Steve, your first step.
Thanks, Bob. So I think we all face challenging technical projects every day, complex engineering projects. But honestly, I think the biggest challenge I face in my position is the recruitment, retention, and professional development of engineers that our entire team. So I'm going to maybe go on a quick tangent. Because as you mentioned, this is a 1,000-year-old kind of sentiment. How do you pass on knowledge? But in preparation for this, we pulled some data in the district and really just to ground through some of the trends that we've seen. Every quarter, we get service pins for basically 5-year increments of public service with DOT. And we've seen a trend there, heavy dose of 5-year pins and fewer 25, 30-year pins. So I just wanted to share some data because I think it's important maybe to open this panel with some of this data. So in the last 5 years, so even though it's a 1,000-year-old issue, I think it's become a critical issue in the last 5 years. So in District 4, we had 356 separations from the department in 5 years. So that's 54%. That's a huge number. So yes, walk down our hall in District 4, 1 out of every 2 people weren't there 5 years ago. And with that, the loss of institutional knowledge. So we broke that down into different categories. So 37% of those retirees, or people that separated from the department, actually retired. So 37%. But the average years of experience that they had was 25 years. So that's the entire district. Within the design office, 29% retired with an average of 29 years of experience. So you talk about institutional knowledge, I mean, that's a lot of average years of experience out the door. Within that same category of separation, we're in a different category. Private sector, 22% of the district is private sector. Average years of experience there, 6 years of experience. So we're losing all that institutional knowledge and people that early in their career are also leaving to the industry. And then, interesting enough, about 10% of the separations also went to county or city government. So that's a challenge with us when we're not even able to compete with local governments or counties. So what are we doing to address that, which is the root of your question? Really just trying to get that I would say the less experienced people involved in more projects, more issues. So a lot of the consultants in the audience, you've probably seen us bring some of our in-house designers to meetings on complex projects, get them involved in those really just to make sure if it's a right-of-way requirements meeting or a value engineering study, just having them there with some of those technical experts, learning from them. We've got the new employee orientation program, basically having them spend some time in each group. And I think some of the challenges, and you know, talking to some folks in this audience in the past, and John will probably touch on this in a bit too, putting them on technical review committees. So we've got people that don't have consultant management experience, having to get that experience on managing consultants and kind of drag them into those situations. So, I mean, I'll touch on maybe a little later if I get a chance on some of the recruitment type of activities we're doing. But really just trying to make up for that institutional knowledge. Unfortunately, I think you're seeing a lot of impact from the DOT lack of experience, but I'm seeing it on the consulting industry too. So really, to poll the audience at some point, it would be good to hear if you're having some turnover issues as well and trouble with recruiting young engineers. It continues to be a challenge for us.
Judy, your thoughts?
In District 6, as the more experienced project managers retire, we are hiring with 2 minimum qualifications. The first one is they need to come with some experience because that to us is very valuable when you're making important engineering decisions on your projects. And the number 2 is you need to come with self-motivation and a desire to succeed and to be better. Those are 2 things that we can teach you. We can teach you everything else, but those 2 things you need to bring with you. Something else that we're doing is, okay, you can hear me better. Something else that we're doing is we're doing a lot of cross-training. In the past, we didn't have as much of a turnover in the district. We do now, and something that we're doing is we're exposing project managers to many different types of projects. Before, we were more specialized. So in the past, we had Jason and we had Ali doing a lot of the palmetto reconstruction. Adriana did a lot of the bridge replacements. And did a lot of Miami Beach projects, but now we're really spreading the work and we're doing many different projects with every single project manager. So at any given time they have a PD&E and they have a reconstruction and a little safety job and a design bill, a design bid bill. So we're spreading the work that way. That keeps them excited and learning, and also if we're unfortunate to lose a member of the team, there's always somebody there that can pick up the work. Something that we're also doing, we're doing a lot of mentoring. We meet, Danny, the supervisors and I meet every month for 1 hour with every single project manager. And we provide guidance with project issues. So that's something that is really helpful. Something that we also started in this district about 3 years ago is we got started by Heidi. Is meeting with construction regarding lessons learned. So Heidi goes over every project that has had time and cost overruns, and the whole point is to learn from our past mistakes so that we don't repeat them in the future. We've developed an internal library. We have very meaningful staff meetings where we exchange a lot of information with the project managers. And lastly, Jim is a big proponent of CPM training and Leadership Academy, and we've been sending a lot of project managers to these type of trainings so that they know they have the skills that they need to lead large teams and manage people.
Thanks, Judy. Paul?
Not sure I need this. I've been told that a lot. Steve hit on a big topic there with how many people are leaving. And at the DOT specifically, one nice thing that we'd like to be able to do is have a longer overlap time so that, you know, when person A says they're retiring, you can get person B in there, maybe have months, but usually you get maybe 2 to 4 weeks of overlap to transfer 30 years of knowledge, so that's just not going to happen. So what we've done in the Turnpike is we've started to make more use of technology to capture the knowledge of these people before they leave, so that when they go, we have databases, we can find out their meeting notes, their meeting minutes, project notes, anything like that, so whoever falls in behind them can immediately, has access to that downloaded information. We've made a lot of use of SharePoint to work on these workflows, to help our new people come along without needing the individual sitting there. We've just recently started working on a QAR repository, so every time we have a QAR from central office, we're going to put all that information there. It's going to be readily accessible for the new folks to come along, all the lessons learned. We're working on that as well. We have the lessons learned for construction, again, of all the projects. We're putting that information into an easily accessible database so that when we do have somebody leave for retirement or whatever reason, all that information is retained in our system.
Thank you. The next question is going to go to Albert Sosa, who is actually wanted to do a little bit of a different twist to this question. He's going to be dealing with what advice do you offer to ensure that real workplace experience is passed on to students who are about to embark in an engineering career?
Thank you. So I think as an industry, both public sector and private sector, it's incumbent upon all of us to really get that next generation of engineers that are junior high and high school exposed to our industry, right? When they look at television, when they watch TV, they're watching a lot of CSI shows, they're watching a lot of Chicago PD. Those are the types of industries that they get exposed to on a day-to-day basis, or maybe what their parents do for a living. So, a teacher told me one time, very truthful statement. These kids can only be what they see, right? And if they've never seen a civil engineer, that's not something that they can be, right? They just don't know that that's available to them. So there's different ways that we can get ourselves exposed to students to our industry. Organizations like FES, ACE, Construction Career Days, these are all different ways that we go about doing this. Myself personally, and as I look around the room, I know there's several individuals here that do this as well. We volunteer time with the Miami-Dade School Board, with the STEM Advisory Board. And through that group, we're able to really get into the high schools and start talking to these kids about what it is that we do for a living. And there's different ways we go about doing that. Bringing these high schoolers into the workplace, right? February was job shadow month. I know some of the folks in here, including actually hosted about 40 students here at the district. So through these programs, we're able to bring these students into our workplace. They spend a day with us. They see what we do. They understand what we do on a day-to-day basis and what that could mean for them and the types of careers that they pursue. In addition to that, one of the big programs that that we work on is actually an internship program, right? What better way to get these younger kids exposed to our industry and really developing the skills that they're going to need to succeed as they move forward with jobs in our industry. So through the daytime school board, there's a 5-week internship program in the summers. It's free to the employers. The students actually come with their salary pay, with workman's comp insurance. It's easy to sign up, interview the kids, make sure you have a kid that's interested in what you do and it's a compatible fit. And again, working with these kids on a day-to-day basis, they will come to you with AutoCAD experience. A lot of them will have different certifications in what have you. Some will have design experience. That's the type of work that you need done in your office. But I think, to reiterate, I think it's just really important for all of us as an industry to really spend time with that next generation, expose them to what we do, get them educated on what we do, let them know that, hey, there's careers available in transportation, civil engineering, electrical engineering, ITS, traffic, land surveying, all these different things that they may not otherwise know are available to them. And through that way, we can begin to bring up that next generation and make sure that as the folks that Judy and the others mentioned are retiring later in their career, we have to make sure that there's a pipeline of talented, interested folks that are coming into that pipeline on the other end out of these high schools that want to do what we do. And really are high impact individuals, motivated and interested in our careers, in our industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. I was actually sent an email, somebody actually on the issue of transferring information. The ASE magazine this month called Civil Engineer had an article. For those of you read it, it's interesting how they're polling different firms, how they're handling the transfer of the knowledge. And one of them had, of course, use of today's social intranet system to connect to employees all over the globe within and outside their firm to share knowledge, wisdom, and advice. And of course, we have a lot more tools these days than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago for sure. How to transfer that information in a quick and easy manner. Okay, moving on. The next.
Sorry. If I may, just from a DOT perspective, to touch on Albert's point, because, you know, I think I'd like most of us to leave the room here today feeling that this is an industry issue, so I'm glad Albert kind of mentioned that. So some of the things he mentioned, we have a recruitment team going out to career fairs, shadowing students. We have, as he mentioned, some high school students. We're also working with the universities to actually have shadows for the day. So I've actually had college students shadow me for a day, and talking to them, they like to see the long-term career opportunities. You know, naively, I thought they wanted to shadow the CAD designer for a day, but I think they want to actually see the senior people what they do. So I think those are all, I would say, grassroots other efforts that I think as an industry we should all be doing. I mentioned career fairs. We're sending some of our young engineers to career fairs, and talking to one of them the other day, they said a unified front from the industry with ACEC or some of the other professional organizations, I think would go a long way. Often they're standing there at a booth, you know, pitching DOT with maybe a consultant pitching their organization or their firm. But I think as an industry we need to find those opportunities with that unified front to say, okay, civil engineering, transportation engineering, here's a field, and here's the different opportunities. Agencies, consultants, contractors, whatever they may be. So I think at that grassroots level. But I wanted to touch on just a little bit more. I think on some things that the industry can work with us on for the people we currently have there. We've got about 47% of our workforce in District 4 with five or less years of experience. So 47%. So what are we doing as an organization, as an industry, to try and groom them, to be that next generation of engineers? And I think there's opportunities with professional organizations like this to provide training. We get some excellent training through central office, project management training, and so forth. But there's a lot of experts in this room that maybe aren't sitting at this table that can help really conduct some of those training sessions and things like that. As an example, also really just project management training, brown bag lunches, things like that. Maybe we could have a forum where other professional organizations are providing that informal type training. once a month, a brown bag session on a case study on a project, to try and transfer that knowledge to that next generation of project managers and engineers.
Very good. Okay, the next, we're switching a little bit more into a technical area topic, 3D design. And the next question will be answered by John, Danny, Pat, and Vern. I'm going to start with right to my left, John. The questions are, what steps is your district taking towards 3D design? What challenges do you foresee with 3D design? And what are some of the lessons learned so far? I know it's early, but with 3D design. John?
Thanks, Bob. I believe that Vern is going to get into a lot of details about where we're headed with 3D design and some of the things that are coming out from central office that will help us better take advantage of 3D design capabilities that we have and what's coming in the future. But as far as District 4 is concerned, the current status of 3D design in our design office is, our in-house group has 3 or 4 projects that they're currently working on using 3D design. And the way District 4 looks at it, and this will probably evolve over time, but right now, we look at a project and try to make an evaluation of whether that project will benefit from a 3D design approach. The normal typical project that everybody thinks about is, big earthwork, big widening project, where you're going to be able to take advantage of the benefits of 3D design. We do the same thing. We're not doing any 3D design on your typical triple R type project, intersection improvement project, not so much. We do have a few other projects where maybe there's a particular element that you're constructing that has an earthwork component in it, and we might do a portion of a project, create a model for a portion of a project, and maybe not the rest, depending on what the work involved in the project is. As I said, that'll evolve, and I'm sure we're going to be moving toward doing more and more projects in 3D design. Right now, we're not at the point where, although we may eventually get there, where on a resurfacing project where maybe there's a lot of overbuild proposed, there are benefits to looking at a 3D design and create a model to quantify the overbuild. But as far as District 4 is concerned, we're not really quite there yet, but we do see that happening. And when we talk about 3D design, I said we create the model for the earthwork quantities. We don't right now, we're not looking at a 3D model that replicates every single detail of a project. We've got, obviously, just like District 6, has a lot of urban projects, curb and gutter, traffic separators, and curb cut ramps, and all those kinds of things that would take a tremendous amount of time to model with 100% accuracy. We usually sit down and figure out what do we need, how much time do we need to spend modeling a project to get to the point where the model is the most beneficial it can be to the construction folks and the contractors out in the field, and not strive necessarily, at least right now, for 100% accuracy in what that model reflects. That's a balance that we're working on, and again, that will evolve as well. Right now, we're still creating cross-section sheets on projects that we model. That eventually will change, and I think that's something Vern may get into a little bit. But eventually, the model under laboratory conditions, I guess, would replace the cross-section sheets. There's a lot of work to get to that point. We're not quite there yet, but it's something that's on the horizon, something we're talking about and trying to figure out how to get there. As far as the challenges for 3D design, there's this steep learning curve. When somebody sits down to jump into a 3D design project for the first time, obviously they're going to spend some time figuring out how it all works. Steve mentioned about sharing information, both internally to DOT as well as the industry. There's a CAD user group which has been around forever. I think there's something we said for maybe forming as these big evolutions in technology come about, forming some sort of academy group, maybe that focuses specifically on 3D design. And it would involve certainly the industry as well as DOT folks and whoever those last couple of people that went through the process with the latest and greatest tools, share that information because they're the experts at the time. Share that information with the people that will become the next experts based on the projects that they're working on. Some of the other challenges, we've talked a lot about plans review, what tools are available for reviewers, both internal and external. We're going to be, submitting for permits to South Florida Water District and the Army Corps of Engineers and a lot of other agencies that are going to be involved in, and they're going to need to know, how am I going to use what you now are presenting and creating so that I can do my permit and do an issue of permit. And then again, as I mentioned, passing that information, passing the right information on to construction. What is construction, both the CEI, the final estimates process, is that adapted to the new products that we might be providing to the construction office? How do they use them? How do they fulfill what they need to do as far as the CPAM and specs and all their final estimates procedures? Can they still achieve what they need to achieve with what we're producing? And talking with our construction office, there's a lot of work to do there as well. I think that's mostly the challenges and then the stats of where District 4 is.
Danny,
Yeah, very similar to John and District 4. In District 6, as far as what we've done with respect to 3D design, we tried to focus initially on internal design and developing that knowledge in-house. We produced 4 projects thus far in internal design using full 3D design. And again, we were very selective in which projects we chose. Projects that were significant reconstruction, projects that had significant earthwork quantity. We thought we would get the best bang for our buck, so to speak, with respect to going the 3D route. But ultimately, we realize this is a reality and this will happen, and so we want to expand our reach with respect to 3D knowledge. So in consultant management, we also have 2 projects that are currently being produced in 3D. But again, this is an evolving design process. Software is changing. I'm sure Vern will touch on this, but as we learn how to design in 3D with a particular software, things can get tweaked and changed, and so that it's a constantly evolving process with our staff. So challenges that we see, similar to what John mentioned in an urban area, urban district, what we found is that the complexity of the model itself forces us to need to divide the files into smaller segments in order to be able to work more efficiently with the software. We were finding that things were crashing and files were getting corrupted at times. I think as software evolves, those things become less prevalent. But those are just lessons learned that we've learned over time. The other challenge that we've seen, and it kind of ties back to the experience or inexperience of engineering staff, is that there is a benefit to having some experienced staff working on the development of a model. As you have intelligence built into these models, there are engineering decisions that need to be made, and it helps that the folks that are setting these models up and making decisions on a day-to-day basis have some of that background to be able to make accurate decisions. We do have some lessons learned that we're trying to pass down to from more experienced 3D designers to less experienced staff that comes on board. And we do look to also have more training, which I'm not sure if Kern will touch on, but we feel that training is critical to developing our staff with respect to 3D. And it has to be hands-on technical training. I mean, we need to be able to workshop some of our active projects with respect to the actual software that we're going to be using, so we can determine these pitfalls and learn how to get around them. So we hope to work with central office in making sure that the training that's being deployed down to the districts and statewide is something that's going to be practical for our designers to learn from. So those are some of the challenges I think that some of the lessons we learned.
Pat?
Okay. So with the Turnpike, what steps have we taken toward 3D design? All of our projects basically are, the default is 3D design. There are some exceptions when we do a resurfacing project. If there isn't any cross slope correction, we don't need, it's not necessary to 3D design in cases like that. The accuracy isn't needed, so we'll bypass that. Of course, that's an efficient method to look at these projects. We want to look at them and be efficient with it. Use 3D where we can, and unlike the districts, being a limited access right away, I think we have more chances to use 3D designs. So we do implement it on all of our projects, and you know that when you come in and we tell you that it's part of the scope. What we're doing also, we've been, the central office had asked somebody to volunteer to do a pilot project, which we at the Turnpike had taken upon ourselves to do a pilot project. It's a resurfacing project in the Polk Parkway. What it entails is deliver the 3D model as the signed and sealed contract document along with a reduced PDF plan set, and it's going to require the contractor to use the 3D model in conjunction with the automated machine guidance. It's a resurfacing, as I said. Right now it's in the third phase of development. We've had our challenges with that as well, which has been brought up by the other districts. Some of that with the training, with the use of 3D, the industry able to use the 3D as needed for these type of projects. We've scoped several projects recently for fully integrated 3D models, which include the subsurface features that doesn't require any of the internal features such as rebar and such. Internally, we develop guidelines for our staff to review and 3D models as they come forward, a QA checklist, if you want to call it that. We've also developed a 3D model process outline for our staff as well. That's also internal, which identifies projects for 3D modeling, some scoping requirements that we would use for 3D modeling. The estimating and negotiating of units and man hours is something also that we have guidelines for our staff to use when we sit down with you guys. And I know this is a big challenge it has been to estimate the hours and the units for the 3D. As far as challenges go, I think and it's been brought up already, the biggest challenge is for us as the industry to work together and to move forward with 3D, because it's where we're going. We've been doing it as soon as it started up back in 2016 or so. We've been on board. It's a slow process, but I know talking to the industry that it has been challenging for you all, and we are going to go there. So, we all have to work together to keep up, and the training that's available we'll bring to you as we can. The central office has done well in helping us with training and the challenges. So that's a big challenge. That's one that I think we all have to look at as one of our biggest challenges, because we are going to keep going. We'll be full 3D, and as we've already mentioned, it's progressing in that way. We're getting it slowly but surely. The other challenges that we have are the acceptance and adoption of the 3D from the community, from agencies outside of ours that we have to submit to. Not real sure. They don't, they're not necessarily mandated to come on board with 3D. So we're talking about permitting agencies or utility companies or railroads or local government agencies. So I'm not sure how we'll end up handling that in the future. It might be that we have to submit paper to people, but that definitely will be a challenge. Another challenge that we're going to have is the retention of these drawings and actually some version changes of our software. So if we do a project in 3D today, complete it through as-built, and then we retain that, and in the future we use a different version of a 3D model. We have to go back and look at this as-built, and we no longer have that version. What do we do? But we're looking into that. Central office, I know, they're well aware of this. That is a challenge. It's a big challenge. We used to be able to look at paper and go back and pull that out. But and construction as well. It's going to be a challenge for construction, for CDIs too. And I know on our end that we're working on that as well. I think the lessons learned and the challenges go together. I mean, we're just getting into this. There are some lessons learned. I will say that we have a resurfacing project that we finished recently. That we had a consultant do a paper, a report, if you will, on lessons learned from that in full 3D, and we'll post it on our website in the time. So if you can look there if you want to read that, it's good, of course, go through all of those. So yeah, I think I covered about everything and then some. But everybody else on here, I think we have the same issues and the same challenges. So that's it.
I'm going to turn this last one to the state expert on this subject, Vern. Vern,
I don't know about that.
but you are the state expert on this, so go ahead.
Sure. Welcome, everyone. Let me talk about why we're doing this to begin with, right? I mean, it should be pretty obvious, but I mean, the industry is moving towards 3D, not just Florida DOT. It's national, it's global. We live in a spatial world, and people can understand things better in 3D than on drawings. Most people can. Now, most of us engineers, we've taken what we think in 3D and been able to put it on paper for hundreds of years now. But now that we have this technology, this is, it's becoming more and more, we're becoming more and more able to deliver our design intent in a model that people can utilize and see. From the department's perspective, or our directions, we've had a 3D task team for a number of years now, and our mission is to basically move towards delivering a fully integrated model on our projects to allow for lots of benefits. There's benefits in design, you have a better quality design. There's benefits in construction. There's lots of reasons for that. And it's in line with what a lot of other departments are doing as well. And to that mission, we basically have four main objectives. The first objective is to try to start designing everything in 3D. Everything meaning utilities, drainage, roadways, structures, lighting, signals, everything. So that we have a fully integrated model and we can see how things are interacting with one another. It's really hard on a component set of plans that are all 2D based to be able to see where things interact with one another, and we miss a lot of those things. And the contractors find those issues. So if you can design everything in 3D and put them all together in one spatial virtual environment, you can see how these conflicts are going to interfere with one another. So that's the first objective. That objective also is to deliver to the contractors models. Originally, it's just for what they can utilize it for in automated machine guidance. The construction engineering industry, or the construction industry, is going towards automated machine guidance. I mean, we have automation and robotics in a lot of the equipment today. And it's not just our industry. The medical industry, the manufacturing industry, everybody's going towards, whatever they can do to get automated guidance on whatever they're trying to produce. Right now, major earthwork. In the future, resurfacing, asphalt machines. Farther down, ditching machines, putting things like that. I've even heard of where they've got robotic construction delivery equipment that doesn't even need operators, and crane equipment that now can work off of somebody with a joystick, and you can go pick up rebar and move it over to different floors on buildings. That's where everything's moving. So we need to be able to design the models, deliver the models right now for automated machine guidance, which is what is currently in our CAD manual and also in our directives for delivering 3D designs. But in the future, we want to move towards the model. If we're going to put so much design into the model, but then when we produce plans, the plans are a byproduct of a model, and the model moving more towards model-centric designs, then it seems like a natural step to make the model the legal document rather than the 2D contract plans. Hopefully that didn't cause anybody any angst here. These are the directions that we're moving towards. How soon we get there will depend upon, how fast we can just start accepting some of this. We're not trying to do it overnight. We recognize there's a ton of issues in all these areas that we've already mentioned. The last thing there is, you may have heard of the BIM for infrastructure industry. So that is the building information model, or it's essentially a virtual intelligent model of whatever system you have. Florida DOT has a system of roads. So it's really easy for us to think of a virtual 3D model of all our roads. And you can click on a road and find out all types of information. It's going to be useful for all types of things. It'll be maintenance, safety, just across the board. So we need to be able to deliver those models intelligently that we can then feed into whatever this BIM or infrastructure system is going to be. So that's our fourth objective. The last thing I want to talk about is the software. Obviously, the software is becoming more model-centric. Just about every design industry uses some kind of modeling software, whether it's Inventor or Revit, Civil 3D now. And we've been using this GeoPack tool for 25, almost 30 years now, which has been a 2D-based plan-centric design software. And Bentley started moving away from that about 10 years ago. And 2 years ago, actually, they delivered the first Open Designer application, which will eventually phase out GeoPack. And so the department is, we'll flow in with Bentley as a partner, and also Autodesk as a partner. And Autodesk Civil 3D product is already 3D-based models. You have to design a model to get plans out of that. And basically, Bentley's Open Road Design software will be the same thing. But we've got a wealth of knowledge that have utilized GeoPack over the years, so we have to have a transition from the old GeoPack way of doing things to the new Open Road Designer way, which is, in essence, Bentley has been providing more and more tools in GeoPack to do modeling. I've been teaching modeling probably 9 years in the department. So it's been in there, we've been saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, it's here. As a matter of fact, the Florida DOT will host our first production-ready Open Road Designer workspace in July. And we're not expecting everyone to jump on it right away, because it'll be the first one. If anybody knows anything about first releases of software, you probably ought to stay away from that. There'll be some people that are charged forward. There'll be others that aren't going to do it until they watch the whole herd get there, and then we know that it's kind of go in between. So And we recognize that you'll still be, that you've still got projects in GeoPack that you want to finish up, and maybe even some new starts after July that you'll still do in GeoPack. But the idea is that we will eventually transition completely from the old way of doing things to this new open runs design. Now with that, since it will be model-centric, we'll be focused more on delivering models. And what that means is that we're already looking at a new innovative way of doing plans. Some of the things that you don't, if the information's in the model, it doesn't need to be in the plans. There still will probably be some plans that will have to be delivered, but most of it will be in the model. And we're using some of these pilot projects to test some of these things out, what we're calling next-gen plans. You know, we're also looking at adding another series of the FDM just for delivering 3D models and the plans that go with 3D models. So that'll be something that's coming in the future. The challenges are the same. You know, we talked about how do we get younger people into our business? 3D models. They love it. That's what they're gamers. A lot of the people in our industry come up that way. You know, some people, my son just graduated from FAU with a civil engineering degree, and he was looking for a job, and he used me as a reference. He said, does he know 3D CAD? And I said, yeah. Does he know it as well as you? I said, better. He knows it better than I do. He's been doing it since he was in high school. You know, these people come out and it's just second nature to them. So, you know, the younger generation is going to embrace this. I would get them involved in these projects that you want to do, and let them. They have open minds right now. They haven't gotten calloused with the way we've always done things. They just have an open mind on how we want to deliver things. So I would encourage that. You know, the old guard is the hard ones. The old guard has to start embracing it. The district, you know, we're not forcing this on anybody. The districts can pick and choose or move as quickly as they feel comfortable towards delivering the 3D projects. We can't, this isn't something that we can enforce. It has to be supported by the districts, and they have to be behind it. We recognize that. So it doesn't sound like we're trying to make this thing happen overnight. The districts are getting more and more comfortable with it. And as they are, consultants or people are going to ask more and more consultants to do it as well. And I could keep talking about this, but I should probably just be quiet and let out the thought.
No, I'm not voting.
Thanks, Bert. We have, now, as far as I know, we have not received any questions yet from the audience. So I want to remind you that if you do have a question, there's on the agenda on the top left, there's an email address where these questions could be submitted. As you can see, it's fdp.acec@dot.state.fl.us. Since we have a few minutes left, I developed a few questions of my own, mainly on the 3D issue. I know it's early yet, but possibly the Turnpike, since you've been embracing it a little bit more than the other districts in my hearing, what benefit when I was there, when a few of us in this room were there, when we went from hand drafting to CAD, and we knew right away that was it. We knew it right away that is the way to go. I don't see the same thing with 3D. What benefits do you see? Has any plans down to construction? Has any quality improvements because of 3D? Is the investment worth the time? And then also, you know, with 3D, as somebody pointed out, you've got to have the underground. That's an investment. That's a lot of cost to get the accurate underground information on there. Of course, the Turnpike doesn't have as much underground issues as John in District 6 and Judy would have because of the low utilities. So, you know, I put a lot of things out there. But let's start with the first one. We knew with CAD right away. The day CAD came out, we all knew this is it. But with 3D, I haven't.
Well, I think it's like you said, it's a progression as we've gone from the table, the 2D, the 3D. I mean, and each one of them has shown that they're positive outcomes. Of course, on this end, there's no doubt that, in my mind, that the cost savings in construction, once this is fully embraced and engaged, is going to show. It'll be there. And then even beyond that, I mean, we're going to go to 4D and 5D. I mean, that's all coming as well. So, the simple answer to your question is yes, I do see it. We're embracing it where we're at. It's the challenges that we talked about that everybody needs to get on board. It will get there, as you mentioned the other side as well. Went from the 2D, you know, that was a big change too, and this is as well. But yeah, it's definitely will pay off. There's costs involved as with anything, but hopefully, you know, our deliverable is what it's all about, and how construction uses it.
But have you seen quality improvements on?
Well, you know, let's not forget we haven't used it, and there's not a lot of production at this point. However, yes, Mineola would be a good example. It's an interchange where 3D was able to be used quite a bit, and I would have to say we have seen the quality. The quality is in the overbuilds, possibly the grading, etc. Time in the field. But again, it's kind of in its infancy. There's going to be more data as we go along, but we're looking forward to it being a very efficient method.
And how do you go about the QC of the 3D documents? You know, the design, the QC plans review type. How do you go about QC 3D?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
So for the turnpike, as a matter of fact, they just went through a process on a stage 2 submittal on the model. And, we had a few ideas that we borrowed from other DOTs. Utah has done this, but other DOTs have as well. Where you bring in a model with the project review team, and it's kind of what we call a rubber shoulder review, where you have one operator and you have all the stakeholders involved. And you say, here's the model, here's where some of our issues were, and you have somebody who's experienced it moving around the model. The Turnpike also elected to have one-on-one workshops. So they brought in the designer and they sat down with a reviewer and said, what do you want to look at? Let's take a look at this. And so they kind of assisted them in how to go in and look at a model. And once you've gotten into a model, once you start getting familiar with some of the tools to go into a model, it becomes more and more prevalent to you. But people still want to rely on those old plans. And that is something that's just it's just a mindset that they're still confident. They can see what they want to see. They know exactly where they need to go on what sheets and flip over or whatever, and they can get what they want. With a model, they're not as confident at. All that data is still in the model, but they're just not comfortable with the knowledge of how to get it. And that is a big challenge, because not everyone is 3D spatially aware and knows software and that. So there are challenges in the software industry for project review. We recognize that, and we're moving towards some solutions to do that.
So for the pilot project that I was speaking of earlier, Old Parkway, there's going to be a phase 3 submittal at the end of March. It's a 3.5-day submittal. It's a 3.5-day workshop. It's everything Vern's talking about. So they'll come in and we'll spend 3.5 days with the disciplines, time allotted for each discipline, and go over their portion of the project. So yeah, that's all part of this learning process.
Yeah, so I can point it out that there is quite a bit of, even on QC, it's more. 2 questions have been submitted from the audience. The first one, what coordination has the department done with the contracting industry regarding acceptance of the model and deliverable?
We've done it on a few different fronts. As a matter of fact, years ago, I don't know, when we were trying to determine what the AMG deliverable needed to be, we polled a lot of contractors and we came up with the required files that were common to everybody that they could use with their software. So that was years ago, and that's how we developed the 3D deliverables checklist, it's in the CAD manual, if you will, that we are actually checking. Most recently, we've started conversations with the contractor, not only central office, but some of the districts have done it as well, where not only have we done field reviews on projects that they're building from 3D models. Now, since I mentioned that, I will say that contractors have been trying to build from models for a long time, longer than we've been producing them. They've been taking our plans, you may have heard this, and making models out of them. As gross as our plans are, they've been making models out of them and trying to build from them. And so they've been using automated machine guidance for that. So we've been having conversations with them about what it is that we can improve on our deliverables, as well as the things that are in the plans. That's what our most recent conversations have been. What are the things that we're currently delivering that will give you a model you don't need anymore? And so we've gone through the checklist of everything that's in our current plan set and said, if we don't deliver this, can you still build this? If we give you the drainage in a 3D drainage model, can you build the drainage structures? If we don't give you this, and so we've been able to try to determine what we're calling next-gen plan set will be through some of these conversations with the contractor.
I have one last question from the audience. This shouldn't be too long. I know we're running down to the minute here. As a construction SPE relating to as-bills, what and how do you sign 3D plans? Any risk exposure involved? This obviously is coming from the CEI industry.
From a CEI perspective?
Yeah. The person who wrote this, that person is a construction senior project engineer and wants to know how you sign as-bills.
I can talk on that one a little bit. So we have these two pilot projects that are currently underway, and we've modified the CEI scope on these pilot projects to include things for the CEIs. One is an actual survey rover, which is a stick that has XYZ location on it, so that you can go out there and it will tell you where you are spatially as compared to what's in the model. That's one thing. We've also talked about, rather than jumping over to marking out models, we can still deliver a project PDF of the planometrics and whatever this limited plan set's going to be, and you can mark up field changes on the actual PDFs. And then at the end of the construction deliverable final estimates, you can sign and seal the PDF. Is the workflow that we're currently looking at. But along with that, we're talking about having an as-constructed survey done. Just like before we even start a design project, we go out and do a survey on a job so that we can collect all the data, and it comes to us in 3D. So the idea is that every time they dig a hole, before they put the pipe down, you take shots on it, and you collect it in a big electronic field book. And then at the end of the project, you're going to have everything as it was constructed. Curves, start stations of everything, just like you would get a survey, you're going to have an as-constructed survey in a field book that then we'll be able to, what we're calling, it'll be in a can, and wherever that ends up being, whatever BIM system it ends up being in, is, well, at least they've collected it for the project. So these pilot projects are going to have those implementations.
Okay, well, let's thank the panel for next up is we're going to have our district liaisons, the consultants, come up and give an update on their respective districts. Okay, Ruby and Mark.
to introduce to you Paul Wyatt.
Thank you. Good morning. So I just want to take this opportunity to kind of talk about some of the partnerships and cooperation in terms of tackling some of these complex issues that we have going on. Working with District 6, District 4. These projects that we're dealing with, they're not simple. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time. We've got to ask some difficult questions. And to get there, it does take a little bit more time. We're working with MDX, working with Miami County and the cities. We have projects for the entire half. And driving down here this morning, having not been in the area for a couple months, seeing the new movements on I-75. And it reminded me, you know, how it almost didn't happen. That when we were trying to work through those issues to either reserve the footprint or make those connections, that it took us going back and keep working through the issues to say, how can we do this? Because it had been such a travesty to see that project built and not have those movements. And, you know, we're doing that. We're doing that with the route on 41st Street, you know, with the new access from 25th Street. You know, working through the issues at 170th Street interchange for the American Dream Mall. That only comes with hard work. Willing to, you know, work through the challenges and the different priorities. So to the credit of that project and some of these other projects, it goes to, you know, the people on the DOT side as well as the industry side. Because it's not easy. But I'll tell you this, after I got through the interchanges, where's our project? I'm sitting in the traffic. I'm wondering, you know, I'm looking at all the other customers and I can tell they're frustrated. But it's coming. You know, the improvements are coming, it just takes a little bit more time. And, so what I'm going to ask is, we have projects that are out active today, and some of those are, you know, gone a little bit longer than we expected. But we have more projects coming on the top. And, you know, for us to focus on getting those jobs, I'm not talking about just getting those jobs done and getting them out the door. Get them done right, you know, make the difficult decisions and have the in-depth discussions to work through this. But, you know, we're making improvements. It's always good to see things happen. And sometimes it's difficult. I just ask them to continue to push through, get these other projects wrapped up so we can focus on the next projects coming. So, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Robert Permala with Stantec, and we're going to be holding the operations panel now. And we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking about quality and lessons learned on recent construction projects. We're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about maintenance issues on projects. We've got a great panel of district construction engineers, Paul Lampley with District 4, Mario Cabrera with District 6. We've got Pete Nielsen with the Turnpike from our maintenance group. We've got Morteza Alan. We also have Renato Morero and Debbie Meyer. And with that, Paul, if I could have you give us some thoughts on some of the recent experiences you've had at the district.
Great. Yeah, I just want to go over a few things we've been working on in District 4, kind of big picture things we've been working with our design office on and also with our maintenance office. As Steve said, we got a lot of people in District 4 with a lot of experience. I think probably between John, Steve, and I, we've probably got about 120 years experience together. So we've been working on some process improvements and things we see out in the construction field. And I just wanted to bring this to ACEC. Primarily design issues, but they're also the things we have to focus on during construction. So one thing you guys may not know, or you may know, is in the Florida Design Guidelines, there's some requirement for FAA coordination in there. And that has actually been delegated from Federal Highway to the to DOT, and then from Central Office it's been delegated down to the districts. It's covered in your Florida Design Guidelines. You'll see it in there, and Federal Highway actually went through and did an audit last year, and they said we need some improvements and we have some inconsistencies between the districts on how we're dealing with FAA coordination. So the way we're doing it in District 4 is, for all our design projects, the design office coordinates with FAA for any permanent features on the project. And And then what we've done for the construction side is we've developed a plan note that tells the contractors for anything they're doing in construction, such as using a crane, stockpile material, any temporary operation, they need to get the approval through FAA. We developed that plan note, we sent it out to all the DCE engineers, we've also sent it to the design engineers. Steve and John have been working on that, so just want to let you know it is a requirement if you're within 10 nautical miles of an airport. You have to coordinate with FAA, and also the contractors have to get approval from FAA for their operation. The second thing we have that's real critical for us in District 4, and I know the same thing in District 6 in particular, is pedestrian and business access. So we really need our consultants to be focusing on how do we build these jobs and how do we maintain access for businesses and also for pedestrians, and how are we complying with ADA and construction, and do we have the pay items we need in our plans so that we can pay our contractors for those type of activities. And some things I often see out in construction is we're going to do a directional bore, so everybody thinks that directional bores have very little impact. Well, if you're running parallel to a road, they have minimal impact, but there is equipment that's out there. If you're trying to go perpendicular to the road and you're adjacent to businesses, well, you're blocking the sidewalk, you don't have pedestrian access, you don't have business access. So look at those kind of things. Is it constructible? Even directional bores, you have to have equipment out there, you have to have a launching pit, you have to have somewhere where the bores come up, and that can impact the businesses, your ADA access, which is very important. We get a lot of complaints about that. Third thing I wanted to bring up was permit conditions. This is one thing we're really focused on in District 4, is making sure either prior to construction or during design that we're meeting our permit conditions. So what that means is that our handoff meeting between design and construction, we're making sure these permit conditions are satisfied. Because if we get out to construction and the permit conditions haven't been satisfied, either they were things we were required to do prior to construction or things we need to do during construction, it can get our job shut down. We can end up in a lawsuit. We can have our permits revoked. So that's a focus area for District 4, making sure we're complying with the permit conditions and also the special permit conditions that can have a dramatic impact on our construction projects and our ability to deliver. So the fourth thing I have is the lighting system. And we've been dealing a lot with this with Mortesa, with maintenance, also with design, and also the maintaining agencies. So what we're trying to do is focus on, is the lighting system in good condition when we go out there to start construction? And if it's not, we need to get with the maintaining agencies to make sure we have repairs done before we get out there in construction. Because inevitably, we go to construction, we're going to hit the lighting system, we're going to do damage, and the contractor's going to say, well, that's the way it was when I got here. So we need to have the backup documentation, the inspection of the lighting system during design, and then also before we start construction, our CIs need to be looking at the lighting system, making sure it's in proper working order. A lot of times there are safety issues that the maintaining agencies need to address. The second point to that is we've had a lot of problems in District 4 with decorative lighting being hit on the job sites when we're out of construction, we're trying to file and accept a job. So one thing we're trying to do right now is make sure in our local funding agreements, the locals are actually paying for spare decorative light poles. So most of you know these decorative light poles can take anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to acquire. We had some damage during Hurricane Irma by a tornado on A1A. It took us 9 months to get those poles and to get them reinstalled. So if we have in our LFAs spare light poles, especially the decorative poles, and the locals are paying for those, then if we have a pole that's hit or a pole that's damaged towards the end of the job, we can still finally accept the job, and the contractor can just provide that pole back to the locals because it's a third-party damage, typically a vehicle hits it. The other part of lighting that we're focused more on now in District 4 is when we have utility conflicts. Make sure we have spread footers in our plans. It's very important. We have our precast footers, but a lot of times we have utility conflicts. If we don't have those spread footers in our plans, then we have to go ahead and do a supplemental. Sometimes we have to pay a premium for those spread footers. All right, I got 3 more topics here. Number 5 that I have right now is trees on the right-of-way line and fencing on the right-of-way line. So we'd like our designers to make sure when you go out there and you look at the right-of-way and you're saying clear right-of-way to right-of-way, if there's trees that are half in the right-of-way and half out of the right-of-way, we need the ability to be able to clear those, especially if we're putting up sound walls. Because a lot of times we clear the trees or we clear the roots and then we get wind, the trees fall over. A lot of times they fall on local roads. So we need to be addressing that, how we're going to deal with that during construction. Also fencing. If we know we're going right-of-way to right-of-way lines and there's Brazilian pepper that's all grown through the fence, then let's go ahead and put the fence replacement in there so that we can get done and have a good job. If it looks good, we have a product we can turn over to maintenance that we're proud of. All right, two more issues I got here. Pipes failing and illegal connections. This is one we have to deal with a lot. We get out to construction, we realize we have corrugated metal pipes, they may have been videoed, but they're failing. We can't tie into them, and now we got to replace pipes. So we're trying to do a better job during design of looking at how are the pipes, are there illegal connections? If there's connections, we're going to allow, let's put some boxes in the plans so we can address that up front, make sure our drainage system is good when we leave the project. And then the very last one I have is just the following one is special events. We've seen a lot of plans where they have a lot of special events. We actually had one that was called the Hopping Festival, and it was a skateboard exhibit at a local park. Well, that's not a special event. Super Bowl is a special event. We put every craft fair from every local municipality in their plans. We have to give the contractor those days, even if they're in non-pursuit. We have to grant them those days, and that counts against our methods that we're measuring our time and money. So we want to make sure special events are really special events and not the local knitting festival.
Mario, what do you been experiencing?
You ever allocate a time frame for speaking? 3 minutes or less?
Just got 2 now.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I think we've got a good partnership here in District 6 with our design folks. As was mentioned earlier, we do meet with our design folks at least, if not every month, every 2 months or so. And the gist of that meeting is basically sharing lessons learned. Because if we don't know what's hurting us or what's adversely affecting us in construction, there's no way we can get better and be able to deliver better quality jobs. But having said that, if there's one thing I guess I want you to take away from my conversation today, or what I'm sharing with you, is perhaps putting a lot more emphasis on urban reconstruction jobs. We're living times where basically the level of service on some of these arterials are very poor. And when you've got to do a lane closure, you're extremely affecting the traveling public. So when you design your MOT, your traffic control plans, that really needs to be thought out properly. You really got to spend the time on that traffic control plan. Is this the best way to actually build this? Am I missing something? I mean, I can sit here and give you examples, but that defeats the purpose, I guess. It's really thinking it through properly. Or do we have plan notes that say you got to build a barrier wall that closes an inside lane, and you know that's permanent construction, yet you've got plan notes that say you can only have lane closure during certain hours. That's impossible to build. So those kind of things are really hurting us tremendously. And as far as urban reconstruction jobs, you're dealing with businesses, you're dealing with businesses on the border, you're dealing with immigrants. And the goal should be to be able to go in there, construct as quickly as we can, and come out as quickly as we can, so not impact folks. And when you've got all sorts of challenges, and these jobs inherently have a lot of challenges. You're going to have a lot of utility conflicts, you're going to have a lot of old stuff that you're not aware of. So taking the time to really find out what's out there in terms of utility conflicts. We have this problem all the time. We've got mast arms, drill shafts that we need to install, and yet I still get reports from my folks of we found a utility unidentified. We found some other utility that it's taken us a while to relocate. So why is this happening? Why do we still have these challenges? We need to understand our process. Where can we improve? What are we missing? Time is money, and it hurts us. So we either spend the money up front and do more VBHs or more exploratory discovery, or you can spend it on the back end where it affects people, it affects folks, it affects the department's pocket. So there's a lot of opportunities for improvement. I think that we need to ask ourselves, how are we doing business? Is there a better way to do business? What can we do so that we don't spend more money later? And then that's why I mentioned utilities, and then moving on to, like I said, urban reconstruction jobs. There's so many lessons learned, and I'll probably do a separate presentation on this. But for instance, when you reconstruct a job, you're obviously having to hit a certain profile, your drainage, you've got businesses on the side, you want to be able to match and minimize harmonization.
But there's no way in heck you're going to be able to achieve that successfully unless you actually take physical shots of those door entries. Otherwise, you're just designing and then figure it out in the field. Oh, construction can figure it out. That becomes a nightmare. That becomes a nightmare. And we see this sometimes over and over again. And so if there's one thing that I guess I want to leave you with is, let's take more time to develop TCPs. I've had jobs, I'm just remembering, I've had jobs where JPA jobs, we do them all the time. And it appears that a lot of these water main jobs get added at the very end. I hear from designers, I hear from you guys. You got to rush it through, you got to incorporate it, you got to make it happen. And then the TCP and the JPA plans are in conflict with the TCP and the regular construction job. And of course, the contractor is going to say, well, your roadway TCP says I can take up half the roadway. Well, the water main said, okay, put the water main in a small trench. So it creates all sorts of issues that we need to improve on. At the end of the day, we are only as, we can, if we're successful, I think design is successful and vice versa. We're a partnership, we're a team, and unless we're really talking to each other, really understanding what our challenges are, we're not going to make significant strides. So I'll just leave you with that.
Thanks, Mario. Pete, how about on the turnpike, on the limited access facility, what are the issues we're seeing?
I'll speak a little bit to design build first. One of the concerns we've seen lately is how plans are broken up. We had a design build job with more than 300 separate plan submittal components. And we also had a job where they wanted to get phase 1 RFC roadway plans before phase 2 had their first submittal. Really, there's some lessons we learned there on how not to do things. This also leads to a lack of discipline between component sets, or lack of coordination between discipline component sets. In the areas, we recently had a job where the lighting plan showed a light pole in one place and the bridge plan showed it in another. Unfortunately for the contractor, the lighting plans were right. So think of the rework that meant on that bridge. Something troubling we've seen a little bit lately is our contractors on design build projects asking for design changes for constructability reasons. Now, one of the main advantages to a design build project is the designer gets to design for the contractor. If the designer is asking, or the contractor is asking for constructability changes, this is not happening. We've also seen EORs that work for both design build and design bid build projects making different design decisions or using design methodologies that are different than they use on the design bid build projects they have for us. Many of you were at a presentation that Tom Andres gave a year or two ago, where he made the point that good engineering is good engineering. I believe very strongly in this in the turnpike. Good engineering is good engineering. Decisions can be made to suit the contractor's means and methods, but they shouldn't result in a lesser design product. Design bid build. We do continue to see some of the usual problems with lack of QC, incorrect lines, patterns, etc. One of the things this leads to is an extensive list of pre-bid questions from the contracting industry. We've had several projects in recent memory that had 200 to 300 pre-bid questions. To be blunt, the perception both on the construction and the design side of the turnpike is there are certain EORs that are using that pre-bid process and using the plan review process to do their QC for them. This is a lesson that we're trying to learn and to see that we can't get on top of it. A specific example is it cost us a fair amount of trouble recently was steel components being called out for instead of plans that are not made in the U.S. That's going to end up being about a $200,000 mistake. One other thing that we're seeing a bit lately in design bid build jobs are what I think of as site errors. These are plans that, for example, don't show ITS with full junction boxes, fiber in the plan, so you open the box up and what's in the box is not what it says on the plan. We've also had some wiring issues where when you open up that electrical junction box, the wiring is not in good shape and really needs work and it's not called out in the plans. At the risk of offending someone, Google Earth is not a site visit. We really need to try that. Some of the things we're doing along these lines is we have a very robust Lessons learned?
I didn't cut you off, but we're about to, we need to move on to maintenance.
Lessons learned, we have very robust lessons learned. The reports are cycled into a searchable library that we use. We take a multidisciplinary approach, and when I say we, I mean me and Pat and our respective teams, to scoping. We have a rather unique position. We have a total construction production liaison position. The sole job is to work on making sure that jobs and multi-project corridors are buildable. Overall, Mario said we got to talk. Pat and I talk virtually daily. So I think that communication between construction and design is critical. You're in big trouble with that. Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to maintenance. Okay, so can you provide us your thoughts on what you're seeing?
Good morning. Good subjects, quality plans. I want to let you know that whatever is being designed, constructed, we have to maintain. So we'll maintain whatever is being done with us. But I'm glad that everybody's looking for the quality and progress. Let me start off by indicating this is maintenance during the construction projects. Maintenance does have a procedure that requires the maintenance engineer and construction engineer to meet and agree on specific maintenance responsibilities within each construction project. And it goes on to say that construction responsibilities will be those stated in the construction plan and standard specs and amended as in the supplemental specs and or special provision. So maintenance does have that, and myself and Paul will be working together on multiple projects, especially on the design build jobs, to come up with a matrix of responsibilities for this design build job. And it was very successful on multiple I-95 projects that we had. And until basically we were advised to take a look at the specs, take a look at them, and then see if you need to take a look at a couple of different scenarios. But in reality, it's best for us, for the construction contractor, to maintain the project right into right away, and they have expertise to readily available to them and do the job. If the guardrail is hit and it's within their limits and they have a guardrail extension, and now waiting for the maintenance to come in to basically do the work, it's going to take some time. Having the contractor on site, it's best for them to go in there and do the work. So, especially on the design build job, we're looking at developing these RFP packages and allowing the design and contractor to freedom to innovate. There's not much, ability to maintain the proposal, maintain it the way it is. So it makes sense to basically have these responsibilities within the contract.
Ronald, what has been the experience in District 6?
Thanks, Robert. Good morning, everyone. I think it's safe to say that everyone would agree, everyone being contractor, designers, and the owners, the more maintenance information you have in the construction sort of plans, the easier it will be for everyone. Everyone being contracted to bid, he or she will know what to expect. It's easier for construction to enforce the specific requirements, and it's easier for maintenance, because from time to time we're asked to go into an active construction zone to do some type of maintenance work, and we usually don't like one contractor working over another contractor. So that's clear that we want these plans to be as clear as possible. We've had a lot of success in our design builds, being the I-75 Palmetto, led by District 6, the AB I-75 project led by District 4, and the I-185 Signature Bridge. Those projects had a bunch of pages with maintenance responsibilities for the construction contractor. And it wasn't just what to expect, but what happens if you don't meet the terms. Well, actually, at terms, you have this number of days to do A, B, and C, and what happens financially if you do not meet these terms. So there were deductions And these plans that we actually took from our asset maintenance perspective. So that worked out great. Construction has been able to get what they need, and it's clear for the contractor to bid. Where we see the problem is on the traditional projects, on the design, bid, build, where all you really see is how many times you're going to mow a year and the litter pickup. You usually don't see anything else, and that's where we need to work on making those stronger, perhaps a matrix, perhaps other ways of making it clear for the contractor what is our expectation during construction. I'll give you two key examples, or two things that I see frequently. One of them is lighting. You have a design build where you're modifying a handful of light poles. Well, the contractor thinks that he or she will only have to maintain these 3-4 light poles, when in fact the entire circuit is going to be on that contractor, even the poles that are not being touched. The other is landscaping. You have projects where you're supplementing landscaping with another landscaping. Well, you know what? The existing landscaping you have to maintain as well, because it doesn't make sense for us to go in and maintain this one, and then the other contractor maintains this one, and this one. So it's got to be clear. It's got to be clear who's responsible for what, and it has to be clear before the plans go out, because it's going to be a nightmare once it goes to construction to enforce certain things that between the construction engineer and myself, we expected that it was going to occur prior to bid, when in fact it was already too late because the contractor bid and he or she didn't include certain dollars for whatever maintenance responsibilities construction will try to implement. So there's still some room. We're working with Tallahassee to see what can be done. I know that we've gone through a process of eliminating some notes. Maybe we have to go back to adding a little more notes, but it's got to be clear. It's got to be clear before bid.
Thank you. Debbie, how about Turnpike's pushback on maintenance?
So currently, the Turnpike process, the initial discussions and negotiations regarding the maintenance responsibilities is taking place in the field with our maintenance people and our CEI personnel. So they do their best to define the project boundaries and determine the maintenance responsibilities. We also try to identify some maintenance issues that can be repaired or rectified prior to turning it over to construction. But once we determine those responsibilities, we do our best to put it in writing, and the CEI sends out an email confirming the decisions. But as Renato and Morteza have indicated, if that information isn't in the plans up front, it's always open for room for negotiation and differences and changes. And that's one of the bigger problems for us, trying to ensure the uniformity in decision-making across all our maintenance zones between our zone managers and our CEI personnel. Another thing I just kind of want to bring up is there seems to be quite a bit of a difference in the definition of maintenance limits. Typically our maintenance folks consider their limits to end at the big orange begin work zone sign. And of course our construction contractors, their limits are typically defined by where active construction is going on. And a good example of that would be the Turnpike all-electronic tolling projects, where the project might be 100 miles long, but the active construction might be a small area around the gantry. I got to talk to Morteza about his experience with the Matrix, because currently the Turnpike has put together a task team to kind of explore this in a little bit more detail. The intent would be to define these decisions or the elements of maintenance in the plans. So if it's up front and everybody understands what it is. We're thinking of developing a list of activities that can be individually selected based on a project scope. Of course, there's lots of things to discuss and problems to overcome, some of them being, what will be the applicable maintenance criteria, method of payment, how are we going to do that, lump sum per day. Also, do we specify cycles or maybe take a more performance-based approach? So Pete and I put together a task team. We're just getting started with this. We've got a long way to go, but hopefully we'll get some good ideas out of that.
Thank you. We've got a couple of questions from the audience. I want to put the first one to Renato. How are asset management contracts coordinated with contractors during construction within similar limits? Robert, repeat the question. How are contracts coordinated with contractors during construction when the activities occur within similar limits?
So we currently have asset maintenance for limited access. There's a 50/50 split of what projects of limited access that are design builds and that are traditional design. On the design builds, we usually have a meeting before. We usually have a meeting before everything's transferred to the design build contractor, so we can know what's going to go to the new contractor when. And we're currently wrapping up that meeting for the I-195. For the traditional contractor, for the traditional contracts, I'll give you the example of 195. Jason Chan, who had some of the reconstruction projects. In that particular project, because it was purely reconstruction of the pavement, our contractor mowed, or at least took it ready to behind the very wall. That was a part of their maintenance responsibilities. But at the end of the day, we always have our asset maintenance contractor perform whatever we would have done ourselves. So let's assume when Marvin and I get together and we realize in this particular project, this is something that construction shouldn't have to do because it's not part of their scope. Like a project that has no lighting, then we'll keep the lighting. And then our asset maintenance partners should work with us to continue to maintain particular features. And it's usually outside of the construction zone, not that we put in.
But that's something you would try and identify, I would say, a design build project ahead of time so that it's clear definition in the
Right, so the idea would be to identify the exact maintenance responsibilities before the bid. But you're asking, how do we tell the asset maintenance contractor?
Well, when you have overlapping areas, when an area is normally covered by asset maintenance contract.
Oh, so rarely are there two overlapping areas. Normally, the only gray areas or perhaps overlapping are what Devin was saying from that first sign that says construction ahead to the actual beginning project. That sometimes gets gray, and that will be the only overlapping for incident response. There's some overlapping there, and we kind of have a criteria depending where the accident happens, who will take care of all the MOT. But so far it's worked out the way we've handled it, and again, asset maintenance, they're more than happy to.
The next question was, would FDOT consider the design build contract, the final acceptance, be more of the responsibility of the contractor and CEI based on the license and middle processes? That's something I'm not quite sure exactly what they were looking for here.
I'm a little unclear.
It's a little unclear. It says, would FDOT consider on a design build contract for final acceptance, would the responsibility fall on more on the contractor and or the CEI based on relaxing submittal processes?
I'm kind of not sure how to answer that exactly. I'm not totally sure of the question, but I will tell you that we've got the FDMs and there's ACEC estimates, and to the best of my knowledge, there's not a version of each of those for design build. I mean, it is what it is.
Okay, with that, we've reached our time. Thank you very much. Oh, okay, yeah, this is one thing that we, Borteza, I want to leave you with, just kind of an example on a project where modifications were proposed that really do not accommodate access from a maintenance standpoint.
Yeah, I couldn't leave this meeting without sharing some of the experiences I had with this design build project. You know, what you're looking at is basically some plan submittal on a design build, and you can see, you know, when the concept plans, the way was basically intended to be built, but the design build, you know, talk about quality plans. I just wanted to share that with you. You know, certainly you're looking at the right-of-way line, and the right-of-way line, if you're not going to apply any right-of-way, it's going to be very difficult for us to maintain it. I'm not sure how construction as well. So, simple as that. I just want to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Panel coming up. While they're coming up, you've got the names in the agenda. While Nate
name tags are being changed and all that good stuff. We've got, for the panel's sake, we've got half an hour. We can't cut the director short. So to tee this up while they're getting up there, so pardon the multitasking here while they get ready. I think everybody has probably heard the governor's vision of transportation is to leverage technology both for reducing congestion, increasing mobility, obviously making significant improvements in safety. So clearly that's the governor's vision, it's DOT's vision. And we have been moving strong in that direction already, which is nice to say. We've already been moving that direction. Some kind of late breaking news, actually as much for the DOT folks as anybody else. But yesterday Kevin at a central office town hall told everyone up there he's shifting all of technology, which is more than just IT, it's the whole operational and transportation technology is moving up to be a direct report to him. It had been in strategic development. We ramped it up to be in strategic development a few years ago. He's taken it a step further and it's going to report right straight direct to him. So that's teeing some of this up. Also with, we got another, we're going to another slide. We got the names. Mark, Omar, John, and Nick. Okay, good. We don't have the canned questions. We had some canned questions here. We're gonna more wing this. So we're kind of setting that groundwork with the governor's vision, what DOT's doing to support that. Also the fact that Florida's still growing at 400,000 plus per year. Obviously our capacity, we're not adding capacity at that kind of pace of growth. D46 specifically was such already constrained right away, even if we had $1 million or bazillions of bucks, you can't build your way out of this mess. So kind of setting that groundwork a little more, just let you guys go free flow, probably mostly touching on ABCD and TSM&O, and also for the crowd, if you don't know, at least on the DOT side, the nice thing is we've got 3 of our most forward-thinking engineers here to do some expounding on this stuff. What you guys are doing in the district, what you think we should be doing agency-wide, that kind of stuff. How do you see this being, do you see it as being as disruptive as what's predicted, or how do you see it unfold, and then also from the industry perspective, how you guys are going to try to keep up with this? See if you got any better handle on it than we do. Mark, you want to kick us off since you're closest to me?
Yeah, that'd be great. Except I don't think my mic works. This is a bad sign. Okay. So I guess, what I'll start off with is just make a few remarks about autonomous and connected vehicles. This is something that you can go online and Google search this, and there's about a bazillion references to this growing industry. And I think one of the fundamental questions really is, what exactly is DOT's role in this? Is there a role for DOT to play in this industry at this point? And if so, what is it? And I think this really is an opportunity for the DOT to be able to partner perhaps more with its private sector partners to really gain an understanding of what are the best practices at this point in the industry that other DOTs are being followed to help facilitate the deployment of these technologies. I think that there's a fair amount of uncertainty, at least in my mind, around connected vehicles and really where this might be going. I think you see a lot of progress in the autonomous vehicle sector, but it's not clear to me that really either of these sectors is ultimately contingent upon something that the public sector is going to be doing. I'm not convinced that in their business plans they have dependencies on the DOT to do anything in order for them to be successful and to attract customers. I could be wrong on that, but that would be my take. But in any event, I think that the more that the department can learn from the industry itself and from consultants that practice in transportation and have contacts in the connected autonomous vehicle industry, as we move forward, it'll help us make better investment decisions.
I'd like to add, what you said, in terms of connected vehicles. If you think about how the department traditionally has promoted, mode shifts, encouraging people to use fun park ride facilities, express buses. We're talking about connected vehicles, we're trying to get people out of their
single occupancy individuals driving a vehicle. Think about how many of you actually carpool today coming here, or took Lyft. A few of you, but the majority of you stayed in the vehicle. So the whole industry, obviously the department's making investments in connected vehicles, but it's sort of, we're going against that mantra because the industry is saying, hey, let's go ahead and you can get in a car now, it's going to be driverless. So that the time that you consider wasting driving it's not wasting time because you can be doing other things. And so congestion is going to get worse. The same thing. Think about how many times, how many of you guys order stuff on Amazon or Walmart or whatever. The United States Postal Service now works on Sundays because they have contracts with Amazon. So there's more traffic out on the roadways. And so it's going to get worse before it gets better. And technology is good. It disrupts the way we do our own business. We have to consider, we're going to look to see if in the future we're going to need TMS signs. It may not be an issue in the future because that information will be covered up inside the car. So one of the things that we need to start doing is saying how we can also actually leverage technology to make our roads safer, the way we construct our projects. But again, at the end of the day, congestion is a problem for everyone. And it's about just this morning I talked about AAA did is that we're now spending more time in our cars. And so it's gonna take some time before we have to think basically how we invest our money in the future. We're going to see how connected vehicles the whole direction we're going.
I guess I'll give a couple thoughts on this. It kind of gets back to the question we had that Mark was starting to ask and answer about what the industry's role is in supporting connected and automated vehicles. I personally think that we're years from fully automated autonomous vehicles out there. I mean, we have manufacturers that say they're going to be delivering within a couple of years here, but I think what we're seeing with these advancements that are being put into vehicles today is they're actually doing the reverse of what they're supposed to be doing, which is they're making, in some instances, the driving experience less safe. People are more distracted from the technology that's being put in the vehicle than they used to be. So at the Turnpike, we focus on a high-speed facility. We don't have some of the more urban street challenges like pedestrians and bicyclists that the districts do. So we're looking at our large work program, the larger surfacing program we have, the reconstruction projects we have, and trying to focus on the work zone. So one of the things we're doing is we're piloting some safety technology within an upcoming work zone where we're going to be integrating real-time data with alerting to our traffic management center so that we can get better information to people, get their attention when they're driving into a work zone. I think we talked on a call a couple of days ago about work zone fatigue. I think a lot of our drivers out there around the state they kind of tune out the work zone because we have so much of the state under construction right now. So we have challenges in our work zones with people not paying attention. We have workers getting hit. We have property getting hit. We really want to focus on getting people's attention on the task at hand since vehicles really aren't autonomous yet. Automated vehicle is ultimately going to help us reduce the 40,000 lives per year we're losing on the nation's highways, but it's going to be a long road until we actually see some success from that.
So what is design consultants, what's our role in all this? And other than strapping on our safety belt and going on along for the ride, what I think about is similar to the discussion we just had about 3D. This is going to be an evolving process. So the same way that the deliverable is going to evolve on the 3D process and the way projects are scoped and the way they're paid for, So is it going to be with ACEC in the design process. So think about design criteria. You know, everything that's in the FDM and the standard plans, a lot of that is based on driver expectation and driver behavior. So once you get to autonomous vehicles, and maybe not in the short term when you're still in that transition period, but as you look maybe 50 years down the line when it truly is automated vehicles that are driving themselves, there is no driver expectation, there is no behavior to design for. So what does our design criteria look like then? I mean, we already sort of know that, okay, lane widths and all that, but they're probably going to be less because you don't have the variability in the driver going back and forth within that 12 feet, so they can go down to 8 feet or 9 feet, depending on what the vehicle is. But there's other things that maybe aren't so obvious that would probably have to be looked at. And as designers, you know, I certainly won't have to look at, but maybe my kids, as they're designing roads, will have to be thinking about. Think about sight distance, for instance. Sight distance is based on, again, driver behavior and your line of vision and the 3.5 foot height of the object. But how does an autonomous vehicle, what does vision mean to that autonomous vehicle? I mean, horizontal sight distance, looking around the curves, you know, we design to make sure that's not obstructed. But now, vision for an AV vehicle is more about communication. So line of sight now means do they have that ability to communicate with each other and with the infrastructure of the road. Signalization, obviously, that's an easy one of the things that are going to be changing. And in fact, even today, District 6, I know, is leading with a lot of the smart signals. So as those signals become more and more intelligent and talk to each other, or do you even need signals? Because the cars themselves, in theory, should be able to talk to each other in a sense when a car is coming in the opposite direction and time it in such a way where there's not a collision or where there's not any congestion. So signalization may be totally different meaning. And then signing and marking, that's again another easy one. Signing and marking today, the signs again are intended to provide direction to the motorists, to whoever's driving the car, either advisory signs or information signs. So that may go away altogether again because the cars aren't necessarily going to, quote, be able to read. Their signing and marking will truly be the infrastructure on the side of the road that guides the car, whether it's an intelligent stripe or whether it's some other technology that allows the car to know which direction it's going and how far to follow from the car in front of it. And then clear zone, that's the other one that comes to mind. Clear zone, again, is a criteria that is based on driver behavior and the driver being able to recover if it happens to be off the road or there happens to be an incident that causes it to move away. The technology that the ABCs are going to have is going to be much different than what a driver is used to doing. So if there's something that causes a car to either veer off the road, in theory, the reaction time should be a lot less, and the technology should be much more advanced where they maybe don't need that 36 feet on Johnson roads on the turnpike. So things like that I think as it evolves, that's more what the designers are going to have to adapt to. And I really think that's the word, adapt. And Bob mentioned how we had to adapt from pen and ink and Mylar 24 by 36 plans to 11 by 17 plans to not having to submit 20 boxes of plans anymore. Now we can do PDFs, and then we're going to go to 3D models. So it's going to be an adaptation, it's going to be a process, but that, again, this is how the designer is going to be, what role they're going to play.
Nick touched on it a bit, comparing it kind of sort of to 3D. The big difference, at least the way I see it, the big difference in this is we all control kind of the pace of implementation of 3D. We are collectively the 800-pound gorilla in that room. We implement 3D when we want to, and it's construction, and the contractor's ready for it. The big difference with AV is we're nowhere near the 800-pound gorilla in that room. We're just hanging on for dear life. We have aggressively tried to partner with and talk with all these companies doing the AV stuff. And then in the end, we say, what can we do? We want to help you succeed because you're going to increase the mobility and improve the safety on our roads. So we want you to succeed. What can you do? Give us good payments, good paving markings. Okay, wonderful. Where we might have a little bit better impact is on the connected vehicle piece, because that's actually going to go on our infrastructure someday. There's still a lot of question about whether that's going to be a DSRC, a dedicated short-range communication, just a radio, or if it's going to be 5G or what. But kind of along those lines, maybe TSM&O for Mark and Omar, and maybe safety on the turnpike kind of thing, not so much the congestion piece, but what could or should we be doing now with what, maybe companies don't want to talk to us, CV is really, at this point in time, if you build a day will come, maybe, hopefully. What should we be doing now to start anticipating? And then same thing with how industry would prepare or advise on that.
I'll start. So I think somewhat to your question, what I would say is this, is that there are unknowns that we noted about CAB. I think that something that we could all focus on is to utilize the infrastructure and the systems we already have better than what we're using now. And so an example of this would be traffic signal systems. And what's unusual about this is that, sort of along the lines of what Tom alluded to with respect to how much influence we have over the process, traffic signals in the state of Florida are generally not operated or maintained by the department. It's done in partnership with a local agency. We have a lot of agencies, specifically down here in Southeast Florida, that have very sophisticated traffic signal system software platforms. They may or may not be using them up to the level they could be used at to improve mobility. And I think it's incumbent on the department, if you're looking to lay the groundwork for something that may or may not happen down the road with connected autonomous vehicles, I think it's incumbent upon us to optimize the use of the tools we already have through a more systematic partnership with our maintaining agencies. To understand what can these software platforms do, what kind of resourcing is needed to allow the agency and the department to achieve more positive and reliable and consistent outcomes from the arterial control systems. So to me, that's really fundamental. And I think that resourcing goes beyond just simply taking a look at the operational plans and strategies, but also getting into maintenance and focusing increasingly on performance-based maintenance for these IT-based systems that if they're not reliably operating, you lose a lot of the benefit that the system has been designed to deliver. So more emphasis, I think, on utilizing the signal system software packages that we do have to their fullest capability, and more systematic work on how do we increase the level of quality and maintenance of these IT-based systems that both the department has and our local partners have.
Well, if you do business here in Miami-Dade, you know that engineering work, congestion is a major problem. And so embracing and incorporating TSML into your designs, into the work that you do is important. You guys need to, as the consulting world needs to basically start looking at, the department's invested a lot of money in developing TSML strategic plans, connected vehicles, business plan. And we need to make sure that we leverage that technology to be able to mitigate congestion. One of the critical things here is that whenever you have a construction job, this goes back to what the folks in the construction they were talking is, if you do the work up front, you're going to have major construction jobs, you're going to have major shifts. Model the MOT to make sure that it is the most appropriate MOT that we're proposing to make sure that we minimize the impacts to the traveling public. We live in a society today that people want instant gratification. They want to have that information now. Everybody has a smartphone. We use ways. We want to know when there's an issue. So we need to make sure that we do our due diligence early on to minimize impacts to the traveling public and get that information out there for people to know that there's an issue on the road. So that's one of my construction jobs in Miami.
So both Mark and Omar talked about signal systems and importance towards maintainability. So on the turnpike maintainability, we don't have signal systems, so we more focus on our ITS applications and the infrastructure that feeds our traffic management center. So we're trying to shift to a performance-based approach and culture, which means kind of changing the mindset of our contracting and going towards looking at availability of the infrastructure and uptime. So we've been starting to shift towards that in our contracting that we're doing. we're seeing some huge benefit from that because our data that comes into the TMC and everything else, the cameras, the dynamic message signs, everything is reliable at a much higher level than it used to be. That's because we're basically we're partnering with the industry. We're getting the firms that have the expertise, the practical experience, and putting them basically responsible. In doing so with approaches that include disincentives if things are not working when they're needed to manage an incident. So that's one of the things that we've done. MOT, Omar mentioned, that's also very important. So taking the time as a designer or a CEI to review what the traffic impact is going to be. That's been mentioned several times today. It's very important that our drivers have options, that they're not stuck in daily congestion. So sometimes our options are limited, but we're looking for innovations in that regard. Obviously, connected and automated vehicles is going to help with that, but it's bringing those ideas and innovations to the projects that you have.
And the only thing I'll add is from a design perspective or an industry perspective, is the challenge for us is going to be keeping up with the technology and keeping up with the knowledge that's going to be required to design for these systems. You know, think back several years ago, there wasn't a work group 6.3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, however many 6.3s there are now. So those are going to be additional knowledge and additional design experience that we as consultants are going to be required to have to be able to serve the owners and be able to produce the plans for the contractors to be able to prepare or to construct that technology.
So that touches on where I was going to probably have time for one short one, Nick. The DOT, I know these essential officer we've been stewing on, you will not find a position description in DOT for a data scientist. That all this stuff is going to create huge big data and also lots of opportunity in that big data. Most of that, I would guess, we'd end up consulting out. Are you guys thinking about that at all, industry? Like, do you need to change up? You need data scientists, and I don't know if that's that work type you were talking about. I don't know what the 6 point is. But how are you guys thinking about that, or just let it unfold?
Yeah, I think it's not even so focused just on this classification. The ACEC Florida, we've been having those discussions in general just on a constant basis. What new classifications are there? I mean, again, back to Bob Ahar's days and Mylar and all that. The classifications then for a CAD tech. Like I said, I actually worked for Bob when I was interning. My first boss. But yeah, so the classifications evolved as well, right? So think back to those days when a CAD tech, the definition of a CAD tech back then was different than it is today. And back then it was truly more of a production work. You had the engineer who was designing it, but then handing it over to a CAD tech to actually draw the lines on the Mylar. And that slowly evolved into be more of a designer. They weren't necessarily an engineer, but the CAD techs were more CAD designers, and that's another classification that then was built. We've gone through the same thing with project managers. What the project manager was before, now we have different classifications of project managers that we're working with to be more in line with the complexity of the project. So that's, I think, the discussions that we would have is, what job descriptions maybe aren't there today, what would they need to be, and then not only that, but then what would the requirements of that need to be.
How about on DOT side? Are you guys thinking like data scientist, electrical engineer, communication engineer, that kind of stuff? What keeps you up at night with that kind of stuff, being able to keep up with this?
Well, I guess before I answer that, I would say that one of the takeaways here should be is that everyone here should embrace congestion. I see it as a positive. No, and I'm not being facetious, because what it's doing is it's forcing us to think differently. It's forcing us to be innovative. And if you look at, for example, the amount of venture capital in this country that's being invested in mobility-related companies, it's enormous. This is one of the largest sectors in venture capital being invested in. And if you think about it, we are here at the apex of congestion in Florida. That's a really good thing. So back to the question about data scientists and other job classifications. The department needs to partner with the industry to understand what type of expertise should we have in-house, what sort of classification should we be looking at to get from our consultant support partners. And I think as importantly, how do you integrate this into an organization? Because if you bring a data scientist in, it's going to look at things in a much more granular way than we do now. In order to gain value out of what this individual is doing, you need a whole cadre of people with disciplines that can take the information that they're getting from the data and apply it to change how we do things. So it isn't just adding a data scientist or an electrical engineer or a systems engineer. You've got to take a holistic approach to how we change the organization, which I also think fits into recruitment and retention for the future DOT. Again, congestion is a good thing because it gives us opportunities to do things differently.
Yeah, definitely. The department, that's a concern, particularly in traffic operations. We're starting to look to see, we're not just hiring traditional civil engineers when it comes to doing things in ITS and TSML, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. But again, there's a shortfall of folks. I was having a conversation yesterday with Miami-Dade County, and I was asking them how are they preparing, with the whole ATMS program that they're changing out the control cabinets. I said, how are you guys transferring that knowledge? I mean, what are you requiring? Are you guys going to the colleges, to the high schools to talk about, how do you hire somebody to do traffic signal work? I mean, because they have an issue as well. A lot of older people are leaving. So we need to get together and see, how do we prepare our future, our young people to be ready to tackle on this new technology and how we do our business in addressing congestion. It's a serious concern, and it affects not only the private side, but the department.
I'll just add that I think the industry, the AV industry is definitely looking for the best and brightest that are coming out of the schools. We need to be doing that as well because while our role may be different than theirs, all of our systems that we have out there require that expertise. So obviously it's going to be a challenge for the department to keep that expertise in-house. So we really need to partner with the industry, the best and brightest. We need to sell our programs to the high schools and middle schools and obviously the college level. I think that's the role that we need to play.
Okay, I better not go to another one. So, but in closing, I would submit that the traffic ops, they are going to be the leading edge of this sphere, this disruption that's coming with emerging technologies, and we'll take all the help we can get figuring it out. So you help me thank this panel. Appreciate it.
We will now hear from our directors. The moderator is Gus Quesada.
All right, well, they're all sitting, I think everybody has at one time or another met the directors from District 4. I'm trying to set up my timer here because I'm a little dyslexic and we talk for hours. So our directors from District 4, we got Stacy Miller and Howard Webb. From the Turnpike, we have Christina Colon and Maria Collin. And Harold and Rudy Garcia from District 6. I don't want to touch a flag. I don't want to have a Michael Cohen moment here on myself. Ooh, I feel weird talking at the side of Madam President. So Courtney told me I have to keep the excitement level somewhere between the Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper moment and watching grass grow. So I have a pretty large margin there, so bear with me. So what we kind of wanted to do, let me get started here. What we wanted to do was just basically hear from the directors and have them in their own, more or less in their own words, kind of tell us what they think about us consultants. So there were three topics that kind of came up about Yeah, there's no non-disclosure agreements here either, so it's a pretty dangerous room right now. I'm not sure what I'm going to get. So we're going to start. I got a couple of questions here, and we'll start. The first one will go to Christina, where we're asking the directors that we discuss the quality of plants and the lessons learned early in the operations panel. As directors, what message do you want us to take away from this meeting? And we'll start with Christina.
Okay. Is this on? Well, I think I guess as it relates to quality of plans, I feel like each panel has sort of mentioned this and covered this in different ways. But yeah, quality is super important. You know, it impacts schedule, it impacts cost, it makes you know, lives easy and lives difficult, both for us in the development side of things, but also for, you know, our customers and those working, you know, with our product that we develop. You know, the construction folks said it there as well. So quality from start to finish, it's got to be a priority, and it does have to start with the consultants developing their quality management plans, and those plans being thorough and followed. So it's one thing to develop a nice quality management plan, but you've got to also implement it and use it. And you know, we have a pretty healthy group of reviewers in the Turnpike design group especially. And I really am emphasizing with them, they are not to do the QC. That is the EOR's responsibility. That's the consultant's responsibility. And it's really hard to get them to do that when it's very obvious that QC was not done. And so I really, really need your help in, you know, increasing the level of QC following the plans, so that, again, we can have that efficiency on our side. I don't have the staff to do QC on these large projects, these, you know, and large amounts of projects. I need you all in this room to do that. And so you are responsible for the QC and the QA, and that's really going to set the stage. And it's not just, as you kind of, we had a panel mention that I'm not just talking about the plans. You know, we're talking about reports, presentations, and now models. So you're looking to us of what are you going to do to QC the model. We're not QCing the model. That's you guys. What do you think is the best? You be the experts. You bring that to the table and bring those suggestions.
Yeah, good. Harold, we were talking in our group about utility locates and the quality of the utility relocation plans of the client. Can you give us your opinion?
Yeah, you know, I think with the amount of years I've been doing this, some things have never been resolved, and it seems some things come back. And utilities locate conflicts is something that continues to be a problem. And I was just thinking about that we need to stop being trying to save a penny and realize the bigger picture that if you're limiting the locates and utilities, we do have a conflict. It's a greater cost on the construction side. Not only that, it's a greater cost on the construction side, it's the impact to the public. And if we lose credibility, it's going to be much tougher with any project. So we need to be mindful of the quality of information that we're getting up front, and not only in terms of locate, but also survey work. That it needs to be quality work. In addition to that, it needs to be sufficient to have a clear picture of what the intent of the project is, but also to answer all the questions and to minimize conflict.
Howard, in District 4, what has been your experience, or what were some of your comments?
Well, as far as quality goes, from the operations side, look at it from many components. One is the deliverable. Is the plans meeting all criteria, standards, constructible? That's one. And for the large part, most of our plans meet that criteria. We have outliers that causes us problems, but for the most part, they meet that. The other part is impacts to the public. And from recently, that's the biggest complaint we get for our project. The projects, when they're done, might be beautiful, meet all criteria, meet all the intent, but during the construction, how we address impacts to the public, the traveling public, and particularly business access in congested areas, that's been one of our nightmares recently. So as far as quality goes, we have to pay more attention to that. How are we going to construct the project and maintain the access? So that's a big one for us. And then, as Monteza pointed out, how we're going to maintain it when we're done. So we have to pay careful attention to things like that.
Good. I mean, I gotta say, you guys are being very nice here. You were not that nice to me when we were on the phone. You're using a lot of we and a lot of this, kumbaya stuff. They were saying, you consultants, you guys, you this, you guys, you're no good. But anyway, we're just warming up here. Okay? I'm all right. So I want to go to Maria because I want to get some of the input as far as the quality of plans that are being put out by our design folks and how it affects you in construction and the maintenance side.
Well, I think just to reiterate, this is working.
Yeah, talk.
Well, just to reiterate Howard's comment there, it's got to be constructible and buildable. I mean, look at the example that Morteza put up there. Clearly, nobody put themselves in maintenance shoes. Figure out how are we going to maintain it at the end of the day. And these things, we have to be able to build them and maintain them. And we're looking for you to be, proactive, innovative, and efficient. And learn the lessons from another project. Talk to the maintenance folks and say, well, were you able to maintain it? What could we do different next time? And apply those lessons learned. We also want to see our EORs being responsive when we do hit issues in the field. We'll figure out who's to blame at the end of the day, but really we need to move forward and resolve the issue because I think bad news doesn't age well. And if there is an issue, the sooner we can deal with it, the better. Because it just kind of compounds. We'll end up with delays on the project. So having the EORs come to the table and finding the solution, and we'll work out the details later on, whether it is truly an issue that we need to deal with the EOR. But we need people to be proactive and find a way to build the project and give us good quality plans at the end of the day.
Absolutely. The one thing that I took out from the other panels is that I think the majority of us here, and I see a lot of gray hairs and some of us who've lost some of that hair. So we're getting used to the now culture that our kids are. Absolutely. And you can expand that. See that you throw me off when you still have a finger up in the air. So we've had a now done next type of culture that pretty much our millennials have brought up to us, and it's good for certain things, but how can you expand on that and as far as the quality of the plans?
Yeah, one of the things I want to point out, even the best plans, sometimes you have unforeseen circumstances in the field. There's a key ingredient to most of our successful projects, and those are the ones where the engineer of record stays engaged in the project throughout. They're there if we call them, and they go to progress meetings sometimes, and they're there to be proactive for some things that might come up in the future. So staying engaged in your project is one of the key reasons for success.
I'm sorry, to piggyback on some of Maria's comments too with regards to the maintenance and construction perspective. As we've heard throughout the day today, when plans and this critical issues as such as construction is defined, and many times we're forced to come up with a creative solution. And unfortunately, sometimes the creative solutions that are put together on the fly cause unintended consequences. And some of those unintended consequences will create headaches for maintenance. A takeaway regarding how designers can help maintenance is to ask yourself, is it maintainable and is it achievable? Okay, I'm sorry, accessible. Riding mowers need to be able to reach all areas of grass. Tractor trucks need to be able to reach all the drainage structures. If they can't, you're causing an issue for maintenance. So, spending a lot of part of my career in both maintenance and construction, I understand the frustrations on both sides. I recall being in maintenance when my folks in the field would tell me, look at what construction has delivered us. And in fact, I would have to explain to you, construction is just building it for plans. It's not that they intended to give it to you this way. So the communication has to start at the very beginning with the designer, it's a full circle all the way to maintenance. And when you do that, you can avoid some of these issues. And fortunately here in District 6 in the last few years, we've done a pretty good job of that. Thanks to Renato and Danny and Judy, who have opened up those communication lines between them and allowed the designers and the maintenance folks to talk, because that's where it starts. It's not what construction delivers to you, but it's what the designers provide on a piece of paper for you.
Absolutely. Let's move on now. Another topic that came up was consultant schedules and deliverables, and I think we talked a little bit about that in the other sections as well. So I'm going to ask Stacy to start us off with the District 4.
I don't think they gave me a mic for a reason. Every one of our projects has a full and complete schedule. And our expectation is that the consultants, as soon as coming on board, they meet with our project managers and align that schedule to ensure that it doesn't have any components that don't necessarily need to be there, and then continue to work that schedule. What's really important to us when we're talking about quality is that we're not going to sacrifice the quality of our plan sets for our schedules. That is the key element in District 4. I will approve schedule changes, not for the sake of a schedule change, but to ensure that we're providing Howard and his team the best set of plans that we possibly can. But it is incumbent on the project manager and the consultant to understand and manage that schedule. Ultimately, a lot of the projects that we're doing in District 4 right now have been off-system, and that means understanding the expectations of our local partners. That's very hard sometimes to manage. We don't have the same time constraints and understanding of the projects that we do. But understanding all of those pieces that need to come together for our production middle and the time that it takes to acquire those pieces is important. You have to get ahead of the maintenance agreements. You have to get ahead of the local funding agreements. You have to get ahead of all of these other pieces, because what I often hear is, those are out of my control. I met production, the plans are great, but all the other pieces didn't come together. That's part of the experience of putting a package together. That's part of the experience of being able to provide full and complete submittal. So understanding what the timeframes are with all of those elements, putting that package together and meeting the end date and expectation. A lot of the times with our local partners, we try to add things on at the end. They like to work with us throughout the process. That's great, but not to our detriment. We want to try to get to yes with as many things as we possibly can. But let's understand we have an end goal of getting a product out on the street. It shouldn't be the continuous saga of trying to help them get to a yes to the detriment of the ultimate product.
Harold.
Yeah, I think schedule-wise, I think we do a good job in terms of getting that project out based on our schedule for letting. But in between, I think there's always a challenge. Typically, firms, they put out their proposals, it's great, they have a nice beautiful schedule, a lot of colors and all that, and they say we get this requirement. And yes, they win the job, and then when they start the project, they're submitting delivery phase 2, phase 3. But yet, the fundamental deliveries, they're not doing it on time. I'm talking about the typical section, pavement design. All the critical approvals that are required in order for you to advance your design to different phases are not being submitted until the end. So it puts the department in a precarious position. As a matter of fact, it puts the district design engineer in a precarious position. Because let's say there's a disagreement with the approach, and you have to change that design. It will impact the schedule, it will impact the cost, and it may impact other related items. Design variations and exceptions are another documents that typically occur way too late, and And I would definitely like to see improvements in those areas where they're submitting those documents early, so the decision is the right decision, and we're not struggling at the end and jumping hoops in order to ensure that your project makes it.
Harold, I see you looking more towards the right side of the room.
I saw a lot of people shaking their heads.
So,
I was blinking.
yeah, no, you were going to say that. I like that, yeah. It was more of a general comment. I want to go to Christina and see the perspective from the turnpike.
Harold, it's nice to hear you say that so that I don't sound like a broken record, because those are the same things that we struggle with at the turnpike, and that is, we put this schedule together and everybody wants to meet that in production date, that letting, but we, really mess ourselves up when it's those mini milestones that we don't meet, typical section package, pavement design, crossload correction, et cetera, and those are critical to get done early and get those approvals done so we're all on the same page to advance to the next phase. And I'll also reiterate a little bit more on what Nick had mentioned earlier, that through our liaison committee meeting, we've talked about the consultants having more buy-in and ownership of the schedule, particularly when there are scope changes, when there's unforeseen things, maybe some stakeholder inputs are coming in late, things like that, this is a discussion with the PM at the turnpike and the PM with the consultant to make those changes and everybody own and buy into that schedule adjustment if it's needed. So those are the things, and I empower you to, raise your hand, talk to that PM if schedule adjustments are needed, and let's all work together on that.
Right, so we've, I'd like to bounce it across a little bit from construction perspective. Schedule means something a little bit different to us CI. Rudy, can you give me some input as far as what do you expect from us consultants to help you with your construction schedules?
Sure, Gus, I'm glad to take it to the script. Regarding the construction perspective and the CPM schedule, CIO is not only very critical in reviewing the CPM schedule, but most importantly, monitoring the CPM construction schedule, which is the actual construction progress. The CIO is to also monitor schedule production rates versus the actual production rates. Why? If these two things aren't aligning together, then there's concerns. And we may need to figure out what the concerns are. Does the contractor have enough resources on the job? Perhaps they don't. And this is the opportunity when we have to take the right letters of concern to the contractors to put them on notice that things aren't going as we had planned. If you wait to the end, it's too late to be able to fix or correct those types of problems. We all know that to have successful projects, you need a good set of construction plans, you need a good contractor, you also need a good CEI. If all CEI does is go out there, observe the project, document it, dating myself, document it on dating anymore, but just document the work that's going on, and they're not doing the work. Okay, there's a lot more to a CEI role. We had a construction, an assistant construction engineer, no longer works here at District 6, who used to make reference to CEI responsibilities as three crystal balls. And you had to juggle these balls all the time. You couldn't drop one because if one dropped, it would break. Okay, and those crystal balls were quality. Obviously, we wanted to deliver a quality project. 2, you had to resolve the public's concerns immediately. If you let them fester, they could potentially delay the job. And 3, obviously, was time and cost overruns. But if you would take care of the first 2, the third one would fall in place. And that's what the CEI's role is when it comes to the construction schedule.
Excellent. I think we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, and I had one question that had come off the side. So when the word consultant appears in front of you, what image is conjured up in your mind? Stacy, you? I mean, is it a responsible, gray-haired, or you know, maturity? What?
Okay, so I'm not picturing an actual person. I think what I like to picture is a team that comes to us that's responsive, that's proactive, and that's innovative, but not to the point of an extreme. Sometimes simple and elegant is the right solution. But I think it's someone who ultimately has the same values that the department has and vision of getting a product on the street that we are all very proud of and are willing to say, I did that. And that's really what's important. It's not whether, it's not the look, it's not who, it's the team that comes in and meets that expectation.
Good, good. I was going to ask Harold, but I know what you think, so.
Let me answer. Well, you know, in District 6, we have the smallest number of full-time employees, and we have a lot of consultants in this building. We count on them, and to me, they're, like we always say, they're an extension of staff. They're part of the team. And we would not be able to be successful without support of the consultants that we have. That's why we're happy when we go up there, we're all happy, we don't know where the metrics, and we get to the end that we want, because of the fact that we have the right consultants, the right job, and helping.
Good. That's a positive note.
We do have fact sheets.
Yeah. Okay. So on that prior positive note, let's strike that last one. And Mark taking notes back here. Let's go ahead and help the consulting community a little bit. One of the major items that we talked about, and everybody will have a chance to speak out of this, is the actual letters of interest that are submitted, proposals that are submitted for design, letters of interest for CE&I, and we want to discuss a little bit of, you know, what do you guys see that's good, that helps you? What do you guys see that you don't like too much? You'd rather it not be done? And Stacey, I think you're going to start.
Sure, I'm more than happy to start. So I think there's a couple of items that I'd like to touch on this particular area. And one is the quality of the teams and the mix of the teams. District 4 has seen in some instances the teams that are submitting essentially submit the same team with just a different combination of who's the lead and who's the sub. That's not really valuable to the department. That doesn't provide us with options. It doesn't really provide us with the ability to find a mix of the right group. What it does is it gives us essentially the ability to shortlist the same team, just with different lead firms. That's not anything that we're looking for. And that's really something that we want to dissuade you from doing in the future. We also have found in certain work mix areas there aren't that many firms, and it's very difficult for us to get letters of interest submitted. We have actually on a couple of occasions, very recently, held industry forums. We've asked you all to come in and talk to us about these upcoming advertisements so that we're ensuring that we're getting a good selection of firms interested in our projects and understand what our intent is. So there are good and bad. We get great letters of interest. They're really well written, lots of input and lots of information. And we find that a lot of people are doing great research and are really understanding what the intent of the projects are, but we'd like to see a variety of teams. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Maria, what's been your experience?
I think one of the things we look for, we have been getting really good letters of interest lately, and they are showing, just like Stacey said, they're showing that you have knowledge of the project. But one of the things we focus on too is staff availability. And we need to know who you're proposing for the project, and if they're not going to be available day one, what's your transition plan? Because we may have a 600-day construction project, We realize that there may not be the A team available day one, but tell us who's going to be there and how long are they going to be in that role. And when the SBE is going to show up on the job or the PA, so that we have identified right at the beginning. But none of us like the bait and switch tactics. And I think we've seen it happen. And I got to tell you, we do check. We do call up the other districts and ask who's on this team, when are they going to be finished on their project. So when you say that the SBE isn't going to be available in October, we are making the call. So it leads to some credibility issues with other areas on the project. We like to see what is the personnel's role going to be on the project too. We like to see good constructability comments and possible solutions, and we have been seeing that lately. I guess what we want to see is kind of the wow factor from you. What are you going to do for us? What sets you apart from the other teams? We like to see the teaming. We do look at the SB or the DBE and SB utilization. That does factor into our decision. I want to say the QA section. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a typo in the QA section. You get a typo there, you're kind of like, is that indicative of your QA plan? So, look for that sort of stuff. I mean, another thing we like to see is we know that some of our contractors are challenging, probably all of our contractors are challenging, but your ability to work with a contractor. I mean, how are you going to get that project built? I mean, we've got to focus on what's in the best interest of the project. Are you going to nitpick every detail and just tensions just rise on a project? And we also want to see that you can agree to disagree at the lower levels and find the opportunity to bubble it up to the next level. And, move on with the project, but don't get so entrenched in this battle. I have to win this against the contractor. So there's some of the issues for us.
Okay. Yeah, some of us don't speak English too good, so it comes off in our writing, so. It makes it for a little bit more of a Latin flair.
Yeah, from
Howard, what's your experience?
From my standpoint, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, one of the things I keep saying to people is our expertise, availability in ITS. You heard from the last panel how deep we're getting into ITS, how much ITS components are going into our plans. Is the expertise for the design, expertise for the inspection. It seems like we have some very good guys out there, but you're limited. I mean, the numbers are small. We're seeing the same companies over and over on every job. And as good as they are, sometimes you need a fresh perspective. So, implore you guys to expand your pool of ITS expertise.
Harold, give some words of wisdom.
I think whatever is said here is right on in terms of the issues, similar issues. But just as a public announcement, I think this district in the past did not evaluate the staff based on other districts. That's something that will be instituted in the project. And I think that's one of the greatest areas of concern, because obviously we provide to your superstars and point out how they're available, and then when they win the contract, it gets swapped out. And I think that hurts us in one way, because what we expect when we're not getting the value of the work. That is one area I think that definitely needs to be improved. And the second area is what Stacy mentioned, the fact that the teaming needs to be a little bit more in order for us to do an assessment. But the letters have been excellent. I think a lot of times the GRC have a hard time deciding. And it's those little things like grammar. Sometimes that makes a difference, and it's part of the QAQC that we look at. But with those two items, I think
Rudy, let's keep it District 6 and then we'll finish with the joint measure.
Okay, well, with respect to communicating on availability between the districts and reference checks, it's important to note that the that proposal, making sure that they've gone through the process, make sure that everyone is available on the job. They also have to do their reference checks. On the consultant side, it's very important for them to be transparent. Okay, be forthright in how many months of overlap they're going to be. Is it 2 months? Is it 6 months? And be realistic. Don't be super optimistic when you know that what you're putting on paper is not going to come through. But at the end of the day, communication, like Maria said, is important between the districts, and it will be increasing. Secretary Tebow was here a couple of weeks ago, and this is a very important item for him, and he wants to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in reaching out to our neighbors in the Turnpike and District 4 and vice versa, to make sure that we are commenting on the availability of consultants.
Christina, before we open it to the audience for questions, go ahead and give us your perspective.
I guess for the LORs, that project org chart, as Stacy mentioned, your teams, who's the prime, who's the sub, and creating that org chart and those partnerships that add value to the project, that are specific to that project, add value to the DOT, bring efficiencies, bringing the expertise. That's important. That's a lot of, from my perspective, what we look at is that org chart and what that team is. And also, I think it might have been Maria that mentioned the DBE and SVEs. Not only bringing that part to the LOR, but following through on that commitment is very important. So you might say in your LOR, we'll achieve this 13% or 80%, but yet when our performance metrics come in and we see that we're not meeting our targets, something's wrong there, because whenever we review these LORs, it says, hey, we're in good shape. And then when we see our actual metrics, we're not. So we have to stick to those commitments. We have to all do our part in sticking to those commitments, in building our bench strength, whether that's ITS or just engineering in general. I think we have a whole room of empty seats. And I don't know, this is my first ACEC meeting like this. I've never been here before. Where are those, kind of younger engineers that could have tagged along with me today, again, to get them this exposure, get them this experience, but all doing our part in building and growing our industry, especially in these new areas as we embark on these new innovative solutions in our transportation industry.
Carla said we could only bring one friend. So, that's fine. Otherwise, if you go to other ACEC, like if you're able to join us on the annual conference, you'll see a bunch of young guys, young girls, and it's a pretty vibrant group of folks.
Yeah, and 18 years of experience, and last year was my first at that conference as well. So, we've got to get our younger staff some of this exposure so they can hear, this directly. They're probably more excited to take back these lessons learned and share it with everybody that they have. They're like, yeah, I heard that before.
They probably listen better too. So we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna open it up for questions from the audience. We can ask pretty much anything that's been brought up today. The directors are open for most any questions. I do have one that came in from has to be a design consultant, but not sure. This back to the issue of the schedules and the phase of middles is what can be done. They just turned me off. What can a consultant do when he submits these reviews or these packages and they're not turned back in time from FDOT? That's one of the comments that came up.
I think that you follow it up. The manager and the DOT manager should be following up to ensure those documents are being delivered according to steps. Because it wouldn't be fair for the consultant if they deliver it and then we're sitting on it. Not doing our part in order to ensure the success of the project.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to remind us and raise your hand when, giving us feedback, especially when those things are important. I think, somebody mentioned here, be proactive in that. And, don't just turn it in and then just, I never got it back from you, and now it's 3 months later. It's like, raise your hand, keep tabs on that, and don't be afraid to give us that feedback that things aren't moving on our side.
I would agree completely with that. The fact is we have some crunch times during the year, and our final plans in our other offices get a little backed up on the volume of submittals that are occurring. So we have to juggle some things on our end. So it's important that you're reminded of our expectations as well. We talk about it regularly at our production meeting, but we're not perfect either. So feedback is important.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a few minutes for the audience. Are there any questions outside? Everybody's quiet. Everybody's hungry. Nobody.
I do have one thing.
Okay, we got one thing.
We discussed, but I want to talk about some of the projects that we've worked on in this district, the overall areas I think that need to improve. And I think we do a great job in the design area in terms of roadway. We do a great job of pavement design, pavements on that and longer. Obviously, areas of improvement is the maintenance of traffic and touched on. But we've had some major projects in this district where I think we need to take a look back and see what we could have done better. And the one area that I think we need to focus on is traffic, the traffic modeling. Traffic modeling, it starts on the planning, it starts on the PD&E, and then based on, by the modeler, they swear by this is the traffic to expect based on a set projection. And then we take that information, we lay out the design, and then we proceed with the construction. And then at times, those numbers don't work out. And the question is, we never go back and see, okay, what mistake occurred? What could we do different with the modeling so we don't continue with the way we're doing things? We've had several major design build projects in this district where, these projects have been projected to last 20 years. And then certain areas are failing within a couple of years old. So if the public is seeing perpetual construction, we're always under construction. And they're getting a little bit frustrated, and you heard about it, we're always under MOT. There's always a maintenance problem, because we're always trying to fix problems. So if we do a better effort in terms of doing it right the first time, then we could focus on other things where we need it. But the idea that we're continuously working on something in the same area will bring a lot of frustration. And I think that's one area that we definitely need to focus on in the future and look at ways to improve.
Okay. I mean, I want to embrace congestion. Somebody said earlier, I like that. You eat broken eggs or break eggs to make an omelet. I want to embrace that. And the reality is, I got into a Twitter discussion a few days ago, actually a week ago, I'm not sure who it is, but the issue went back and forth that I basically been talking about from 10 years ago to now. And I basically said, hey, the population in Miami has increased by 60% over the last 15 years. I mean, so you may be building it today with a projection, I know the roadway I'm building in today with projections to 2030 or 2040, but we may reach those projections in 2022. So it's an upward battle, and I think I think for us it's a good thing, a good call to have. So I answered those questions. No other questions before I turn it over. Mary, you and I were talking about safety, and you wanted to chime in on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. We have a lot of transportation people here in the room, so I wanted to do a brief safety message. John mentioned we don't have pedestrians on the turnpike. It's a limited access facility. But you would be surprised the number of fatalities from pedestrians. They are people who got out of their vehicle. We had 81 fatalities on the turnpike system last year. That's up from 53 the previous year. We're at 9 year to date, so we're right on track with having that 80 number again this year. So I want to remind everybody about moving over. If you see a vehicle stop either on the inside or outside shoulder, you either need to slow down or move over one lane. And we've all seen people stop leaning on their vehicles, on the cell phone. Just remind your family members, if they are stopped or broken down on an interstate system, get behind the guardrail, go over to the fence line, make the call from there. Don't make it from beside your vehicle. It's scary out there, and we don't need any more fatalities.
So I think it's a funny thing that just came in. Somebody doesn't know what, I don't want to sound like a broken record means. And so I guess there's some young people in here that have never seen a record. In the olden days, like my kids say, in the olden days, there used to be vinyl records that were plastic round, and they went around the turntable, and if they were broken or scratched, the needle would skip, and you would be repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So when an elder says, I don't want to sound like a broken record, because I'm repeating myself multiple times. So, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to the very young Courtney.
Gus, you left us up here.
Did we
Oh,
say
you
that?
can go. I thought you guys were
You just stay for this. Thanks, Gus. I really appreciate the court. And I looked into it. All 6'2". So the results are in. Here, bring this down to my frame. All right, so here's the first slide. So before we go any further, can you hold right there for me, Katrina? I'm going to have to represent both the consulting industry and DOT, because the polls here are from DOT perspective as well as from the consultant perspective. Back in 2015, when we had, I think this last time we did this panel, this quiz, we had a panel up here that was comprised of DOT and consultants. And they would go through these results and, have some conversation. Unfortunately for you, you get me. So I'm going to represent both, and I'm going to do it in the same voice. I don't plan to change that. So here's the first one. Are you a consultant or a DOT staff? So back in 2015, which is on the left, and on the right is today's results. You see, back in 2015, we had 73% consultants in the audience, 27% DOT. Today we were balanced, and I don't think that was arranged, right, Carla? This was just pure by accident, 50-50. All right, I'm going to spend time on that. Let's flip to the next one. Thank you. So this one that I think is good news. It's about a BDI program. Do you think the BDI program has been effective in growing small businesses? So I've had this for a few minutes and I've had a chance to look at it. And if you look at the 2015 results and you look at today's results, you see some changes in there, right? But overall, the number of folks that were saying, yes, it's a good program back in 2015 was about 82%. That's the 43 plus the 20 plus the 19. If you look at today's results, it's 85%. So we've gone up about 3%. And just to give you some statistics that we're able to cobble together really quickly, this BDI program started back in 2006. Last year we spent $48.14 million on the BDI program. This year to date, we're at $35.1 million. So it's a healthy program and it's showing results. I've heard from a few consultants who are, I'm going to say, sharing their sorrow that they're graduating from the program. But that's a good sign. It meant that the program did what it was supposed to do. Get you a toehold, you built your business is prospering, and you're now going to be a graduate. All right, Katrina, can you move to the next one? Okay. So this is a set of questions. The next 3 questions is about what DOT staff felt were the 3 top priorities for them from consultants. So I'm not going to go through each one of these right now. What I'm going to do is just take a more general approach, given that I'm sitting between you and lunch. So, and as much as I think how big I am, I'm going to have to give way to the other folks here. So, Katrina, can you go to the next slide? Okay. Look at the top 3 priorities for District 6. Number 1, quality of deliverables. I'll make sure I'm on the right page here. Can't see too far over there. Even my young eyes can't get there. Technical awareness and willingness are the authority to make decisions back in 2015. That is, was the consultant willing to make a decision? What is it today? Quality of deliverables, budget management, and innovation. Flip to the next one, please. Okay, I was wondering where that. Okay. So this is for the turnpike. I didn't call it out 4 because I'm going to go back to the 4 slide when I start to kind of give you some thoughts that I had. Turnpike. Quality of deliverables back in 2015. Willingness and authority for the consultant to make a decision. And innovation. What is it today? Innovation, technical awareness, performance is the second part of it. And the next 3rd one was scheduled performance. So I'm going to flip to the next slide, please. And there's just a commonality that I see between some of what DOT thinks of the consultant and what the consultant thinks of DOT. So this is a question for the consultant to tell District 4 how they can improve. What are the major issues or major concerns that they have? Areas that we feel that we could have some improvement in. Okay, let me make sure I'm on the right person. So, number 1, back in 2015, distribution of projects. Number 2, experience of DOT staff. And 3, contract negotiations. Well, flip to today. Distribution of projects, still number 1. Contract negotiation, still number 2. And I consider this a wash between the different makeup of the technical team and experience of the FDOT project. It's 1% difference. Can you flip to the next one? District 6. Back in 2015, number 1, distribution of project. Experience of the FDOT project manager. If my math is correct, different makeup of the technical team. Let's flip to today. Distribution of the project. Experience of the FDOT. Different makeup of technical staff. Let's flip now to what I thought was the next one. Thank you. Back in 2015, distribution of the project. Yeah. Different makeup of the technical team and staff, FDOT staff availability for marketing. Today, distribution of the project, different makeup of the technical team, FDOT staff, contract negotiation. I look at the wrong slide? Oh, look it over. Sorry. Timeliness. You gotta give those guys from up north, they can't see too well. Distribution of project amount and different makeup of the team, sorry. Okay. So, let's go back to the first, the District 4 slide of what consultants think of district. If you guys had any, you're all consultants and you're all 50-50 and we're all bright people in here. If you remember all of that, right, you'll see that there's a commonality between what DOT had, some concerns between DOT and some concerns between the consultants. One of them is our team, our staff. That is an issue for us and for the consultants. And that's a concern that we are going to have to work together to solve. Because it's not just DOT. You're complaining, consultants are saying DOT project managers don't have the technical awareness. And we're saying, we're seeing the same issue on the consultant side. So that's going to require us working together to solve that problem. The solution is not hiring from DOT. That's not the solution. So it's going to require both of us to work on that together. Quality of deliverables. That was a common thing between our districts to the consultants. You heard it on the panel from the directors. Quality of deliverables. So this is something that, as a consultant, you need to take into account. We're expecting a quality product. And so everybody has a quality section. You heard Christina talk about it. Yeah, you heard Maria talk about it. You heard Harold talk about it. I can list every director who was on the panel talk about it. There is a QA/QC part of every contract. And so the expectation is that you're using that to deliver the quality, but it is a concern for the department. Here's a positive, willingness to make decisions. If you flip to the next chart, Katrina, thinking about Christina before, and flip one more. Okay, so this one was a little. I can't see that. Okay. Can you flip back one? Okay. If you look at one more, go back one more. Let's do that. Okay. And one more. Go back one more. Okay, look at the chart, willingness to make decisions. Back in 2015, and if you go back one, you'll see, which is the column to the far right, there has been a decrease in that column. It means that the consultant industry has been taking on the responsibility and have been making the decisions. There has been a reduction in those numbers since 2015 and now. That's a positive. To me, that's a very good positive. Doesn't cancel out the negative or the quality, but it's a very good positive. Schedule performance. If you flip, let's see where we're at. Okay. If you go flip one more forward for me, Katrina, and then one more over. If you look, you'll also see that schedule performance have improved, right? But you've also heard from some directors as well that there's still a concern. So there's still room for improvement here. For some. It is a one anomaly. Yeah. There's an anomaly on one of the districts. One of the things I would really suggest too is for the liaison committee, the district liaison committee, to discuss some of these results in their regional meeting or local meetings when they're having it for the districts. Because some of these results, I kind of throw out what I'm going to say as an anomaly, because there are some things, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the consultants expect of DOT. And there's one or two things that doesn't really follow the trend. There's a big difference between what in one district and the other, major change. So like for instance, if you go to, flip forward for me please to, it should be this one, polling question number 5. It's one back. Okay, here's one that seems to me to be an anomaly. Look at the quality of deliverables for the turnpike here. 25% was a concern back in 2015, 9%. Well, you heard a concern raised by the director, so that's an anomaly. Seems like a lot of consultants voted on that one. Just so let's go to question 6. Trying to make sure I'm on the right side. Okay, so I can read that. And can you do question 7 too, short 7 and 8? One of the things that I saw through this is that, and this is what the industry, consulting industry thinks that DOT can do better or can improve on. And I know I started out with, I said something bad about consultants, but given that I'm representing DOT, I'm going to say something nice about DOT. DOT staff is more available. If you look at these marketing meetings, and you heard this morning that been said by one of the panel members where Turnpike has set aside time for all that. And I do believe some of the other districts, District 4 and 6 also have some of that as well. So that is a plus. There's more access to DOT staff for consultants. There's still a big concern in 1 or 2 districts for distribution of projects. That was a feedback that was in here, that folks don't think that projects are being distributed I guess evenly, or but one of the things I would suggest that the local ACEC teams talk this out with their local districts, because this subject, if you look at, it's not such a concern in District 4. District 4's number went down, but of districts, but you never know, that could be an anomaly. But I would suggest that you guys talk about that. Innovation. This one struck me real as interesting. Can you go back to question 6? Okay. Look at the innovation numbers for 2015, 26, and today. Can you go to question 7? And then can you go to question 8? Now, what struck me as odd about this one? Go to question 5. This one is interesting. The consultants are saying DOT needs to be more innovative. One of the top priorities. When we flip back, what's that? When you go to question to be more innovative, right? But when you go to question A, it's one of the top priorities that says consultants are saying DOT needs to be innovative. So obviously there is a miscommunication on what innovation is. And I think I see this repeated a little bit in a few of the other slides. But I'm kind of running out of time, so. But what struck me is that what may be viewed as an innovative idea by the consulting industry may not be the same thing shared by the department. So we're having differences of opinion, and I think that's something that we do need to have a conversation on as to what is innovative and what is not. Because if you're proposing an idea and the department is saying no to the idea, I think we need to have that conversation as to whether or not it fell in the realms of what we're looking for or not. So I don't have an answer as to why. I just saw it. Could it be an anomaly? Yes. But I've seen it on the other slides if you look back at them. But again, that's the 15-minute wrap up when I had 10 minutes or 20 minutes to look at the slides. So I'm giving you my opinion on it. You may have a different opinion. Unfortunately, you don't get to share it. Do we have any questions? All right. See? So you get a captive audience of one, right? Me. Anyway, thank you all.
All right, with that, thanks everybody for coming to this regional meeting. Special thanks to Jim Hope, Jerry O'Reilly, Paul Wise, and their senior staff for being here, being candid, being honest with this. I'll get to those. Thanks. Thanks for all those who were on the panel or moderated. Appreciate that. Got to call out specifically Cindy Capdevila, Bertie Catswell, Katrina back in the back, produced it well, and all the D4s, and Turnpike staff to really help run this thing with the background and making it happening. Before you go, before it gets too quiet in here, or too loud here rather, the intent of this is to be informative and relevant. You need short-handed feedback on how to make these informative and relevant for the next one, which will be in North Florida sometime in late summer, which will be in Tallahassee. But when we get the survey, we need that feedback to keep improving these things. And everybody's waving this at you. Turn in your voting instructions before you leave. Thank you very much.
All right, take care, guys.